Good evening, everybody, and thank you very much for returning to the Wednesday, June 5th regular council meeting. After a brief in-camera session to discuss a few comments that were going on, I believe, Mayor Fuel, you're ready with a couple of motions.
I do have a couple of motions. I would like to move to rescind my motion of deferring the presentation of Councillor Montgomery tonight, and I'll speak to that.
Go ahead.
I've always tried to carry myself with integrity and to do the right thing, and I listened to Councillor Montgomery, and I heard him very well, and we had a good discussion in camera, and we want to do the right thing and follow the right procedure. So I dropped the ball as far as a formal written notice of complaint. So if we haven't followed all the procedure points correctly, then how can I go ahead and push for something to arise out of that? So I will ask council, I've got a motion on the floor to rescind that earlier motion of deferring the presentation by Councillor Montgomery. And I do apologize, Councillor Montgomery, I have heard you, I listened to you in the in-camera room, and I agree that if we're going to offer any form of discipline or try to uphold councillors to a code of conduct, then we have to follow that code of conduct to the letter as well. So I will be trying to bring that forward as far as following proper procedure at a later time, but I do apologize to you for the way it was done improperly. Your Worship.
Hearing that motion, is there any discussion? Councillor Montgomery.
Yeah, thank you. No hard feelings. Mistakes happen. It's not a big deal, obviously. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion on the motion? Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the question. Oh.
What are we voting on? Rescinding? I thought the motion was still on the floor.
So it's a motion to rescind the motion that was on the floor. So once a motion is made, it belongs to all of council and can't be retracted until council votes on it. So to the people in the audience, we had a motion on the floor to defer Councillor Montgomery's presentation under, I believe it's section 10.1 of our agenda. Once a motion is made, it belongs to all of council, and one person can't pull it back by themselves. It must be rescinded by a motion of council. This is all just lovely procedural stuff that we get to work through. So that being said, the motion on the floor is to rescind the initial motion to defer Councillor Montgomery's presentation, in short. Councillor Montgomery, do you have further discussion?
Yeah, not that I want to be picky, but so I think technically we want to withdraw the motion because rescind, I think, would be for a motion that's already passed.
Thank you, you're right. The word that I should be using is withdraw the motion because it hasn't been passed yet.
So I can correct that then, Your Worship. I would move to withdraw my earlier motion deferring the PowerPoint presentation by Councillor Montgomery.
All right. Hearing that and having the wording corrected, is there any further discussion on the motion? Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
And then, Your Worship, I would like to move that we rescind the motion arising from the May 15th council meeting concerning reprimanding Councillor Montgomery. And then if I can speak to that.
Yes.
Again, I did not follow the proper procedure. I mistook a couple of the points in our code of conduct as far as issuing a written letter of complaint. What we did was we presented the complaint verbally to Councillor Montgomery, and we didn't follow all the points correctly. So I want to make sure that we follow all the right steps. If we're going to hold someone accountable, I also need to be held accountable. So I think you've got the motion, Claudette, that I just made.
That is correct. I have the motion.
Thank you. So that's my motion, and those are my comments.
Thank you, Your Worship. Hearing the motion on the floor, looking for comments. Councillor Wiley.
Yeah, so just to clarify, so council is going to rescind the motion to censure Councillor Montgomery for not following procedure bylaw because council did not follow procedure bylaw. Is that correct?
And Your Worship, that is correct.
It's not quite. It's a code of conduct.
But I will also add that I will be going through the proper steps procedurally to bring forward that complaint at a future meeting. But I do want to follow the proper steps so that it's fair to Councillor Montgomery and so that I'm being held accountable and that we're all doing the right thing.
Thank you, Worship. Councillor Peterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say that you were not the only one. We were all under a different understanding of how that could go forward. And so I really appreciate that you accept the burden, but it wasn't just you. And there are lots of us here that have to accept that responsibility, and I do as well. And I really appreciate that you provide that leadership for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. Are there any further comments or discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? And with that, the motion has passed. And at this time, I believe it is my turn to turn the chair back over to Mayor Fuel. Thank you, everyone, for your patience with me. I am still learning this deputy mayor thing.
Thank you. And my last comments on that is, as a group, we still try to do the right thing all the time. And so when we've made missteps, we work together. And I know we went in camera, and people sometimes wonder why we go in camera at various times, but we are able to have a really clear, open, frank discussion, and we try to do the right thing. So at this time, we're on 10.1.1. Councillor Montgomery has a PowerPoint presentation on the proposed lodge and hospice.
Good evening, Council. And thank you very much for letting me do this. So this is meant to be an information presentation about the Lodge and Hospice project. Yeah, it's not intended to, I guess, let's say, put forward any particular perspective or point of view. This is just for Council's information and the public's information. So I'm willing to entertain questions throughout or corrections if anybody has anything they want to correct me about. The proposal for the Wheatland, or the WHMB, Wheatland Housing Management Body, Lodge, and the Wheatland and Area Hospice Society. The proposal is that they are partnering to build a multi-story building in Kinsman Park. The building is proposed to contain 120 units in the lodge portion, as well as 6 beds / accommodations in the hospice portion. The 120 lodge units will range in size from 275 square foot studios to 600 square foot 1-bedroom units. It's also my understanding, I think, that there's possibly going to be an option to maybe pair up rooms or something like that if a couple moves in, but this is based on just the information that was presented on April 18th. So the new lodge will provide rooms, meals, housekeeping services, and recreational opportunities for independent seniors. And according to the Alberta government website, applicants must be 65 years of age or older and must be functionally independent with or without the assistance of community-based services.
So Jason, if we have questions, may we ask as it goes?
Yeah, please, yeah.
Would you go back one slide?
Yep.
So this is certainly not the first time I'm hearing this, but when I talk to people in the community, they seem to have a misunderstanding that the services that are going to be offered at the lodge are going to be a lot higher level services for aged. Particularly, people have talked to me about how pleased they'll be to have more dementia care beds in Strathmore. But just to clarify to the public at home, to the people here, this is just without assistance.
Yeah, this is, as the Alberta government website mentions, people that move into the lodge must be functionally independent with or without the assistance of community-based services. What you're referring to is the different levels of care, such as supported living and then supported living D, which is dementia, and those are provided at facilities that will not be the lodge, say Sagewood, for instance, or even the new Shasta Care. They will have supported living there. So the cost. The new lodge, so this is, I think this is not my current presentation, the one I gave you.
Your worship?
Oh, is it?
Councillor Peterson?
I just think with regards to levels of care and in terms of congregate living, it's not quite represented correctly.
Oh, yeah,
But there
please.
are people in the room that can do that much better than me.
Well, I'm just going based on the Alberta government website that says that people must be functionally independent. So the new lodge is expected to cost roughly $59,904,827, roughly. And this cost will be paid for with a combination of potential provincial grants, CMHC lending, and municipal contributions.
Excuse me, can I ask a question? If you're presenting a presentation, doesn't it have to be factually correct?
Would you mind coming to the microphone with your question so that our audience at home can hear?
Sorry, who said that?
I'm just wondering from my perspective, typically with a presentation that's delivered, no matter what the format, that there needs to be sources and factually correct information. So I'm just wondering, as someone who's coming for an informational presentation, what this information is based off of and what the correct sources are.
Can I speak to that, Your Worship?
Sure.
So if I might speak to that, Your Worship, what happens you have a legitimate question.
I can't write a paper. Hi, Mr. Fuel.
Hi, how are you?
I could never write a paper for Mr. Fuel in my grade 12 class, or Mrs. Peterson, you never taught me, but Mrs. Mitzner's daughter and I went to the same academic institutions, and I came here to understand the facts that were being presented tonight. And as far as sourcing, if you're giving a presentation, one would hope that it would be sourced on the presentation and factually correct when you're presenting to a panel.
Yeah, so actually you can see right here.
So if I have the floor right now, Councillor Montgomery.
Sorry, this is my presentation time, if you don't mind. Thank
Montgomery,
you.
I have
I'm
the
answering this
floor.
lady's question, thank you.
Yeah, I know, but I had the floor.
I'll answer your question in a second, thank
No,
you.
Councillor Montgomery, I
So
didn't
as
have a
you can
question.
see right
let me
here,
just
so this is as per the Wheatland Housing
Mute him.
Management Body Presentation, April 18th, 2024. So this is from the consultant, Derek Weiss.
Councillor
He's the
Montgomery,
consultant
can I
hired by
interrupt?
them, and I got it off of
Mentioning from the Alberta website is that there as well? And will this presentation be shared to be able to cross-check those
He's
facts?
going to have to stop.
yeah, I'll post
Councillor
this online.
Montgomery, I'm muting you now because she did have the floor and you could have answered her question as soon as she was done because she was the next one in line to speak. Even though she asked the question, she had the microphone. You could have answered her after. Councillor Peterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. So to address you, the difference between a presentation in a council chamber and a presentation, of the experts that come into our field is that councillors can propose scenarios and they can propose what ifs, and they're not held to the same standard. And so I think that's not maybe acceptable answer to you, but it is the answer. So councillors have a latitude that experts do not have.
So the information that's being, just from my interpretation of that, thank you for clarifying, is that what's being presented may be coming from a specific perspective and not necessarily 100%
Sure.
accurate from an expert's opinion.
So we can all do what ifs, absolutely.
Okay.
That is the way things happen. So in a presentation, any councillor could come before their council and they could do a what if presentation. So if I wanted to create a scenario and say, what if this happened? I could come forward and I could present a what if scenario as a councillor, and my fellow councillors are obliged to listen to that because we have the right as an elected official to represent the people who elected us. So we are not held to the same standard except by our electorate in an election. So we're not held to the same standard.
Okay, so it's not the same as if we were to source empirically correct.
You can speak to the mic.
So it's not the same, for example, if we were to source something in a publication or a research study. It is open to interpretation and perspective of the person that's presenting it.
I think that's fair. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
You know, I could
Question.
bring forth a scenario that would say, you know, what if the roof on the swimming pool fell in the next year and we pay 25% of our recreational budget, and I could do a what if, and I could put numbers to it that
Right.
come out of here, but I am not a CPA, and I am not M3, I'm not an architect, and I am not an accountant. So, but I could still do that.
Thank you. I was just looking for that understanding. I see it here with respect to the government and just wanting to understand the difference between perspective and the raw numbers of what, when you're seeing a number like that to cost a community, the level of care, et cetera, what that was all based on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Wiley?
Sure.
Or did you want to say more?
Two things, please.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, nevertheless, every single slide is cited, so you could definitely cross-check all the information. I have a question to the chair, if that's all right. Sure. I've been on council for a long time. Section 10 is called council statements. I'm not aware procedurally of a situation where we take questions from the audience.
Well, I think in a situation at the start, I believe it said that members of the public are welcome to provide comments regarding items on the agenda in person during the council meeting. So we have allowed people to speak on issues before.
Like, if I could finish, thank you. Obviously, this is unprecedented behavior, but that's fine. I expected as much. But to answer the question, actually, so all of this information is directly from the consultant hired by Wheatland Housing. Yeah, no, you're welcome. It's technical problems, but so yeah, so this is all directly from information shared by the consultant hired by Wheatland Housing Management Body and the Wheatland and Area Hospice Society. And it'd be familiar to anybody that was at those meetings, but so I'll continue. And if any members of council have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those. Thank you. Okay, so, oh, perfect. Okay, so as you can see, the lodge is going to be almost $60 million. It's going to be paid for the combination of potential provincial grants, one of them being the AHPP, which is the Affordable Housing Partnership Program, I believe. So last year, the Wheatland Housing Management Body came to council asking for a letter of support because they were going to be applying for, I think, around $7 million for that grant. They're now up to asking for $18.8 million for that grant. There's also planning to borrow money from CMHC, and then also municipal contributions will make up the rest of the buy. Go ahead, next slide, please. Or is that my job? Oh, there we go. Thank you. So the new lodge is expected to cost that much, and this amount is for the construction of the lodge only and does not include the construction of the hospice portion. And as you can see the citation there, it says, as per Weiss WHMB presentation, April 18th, 2024. That's where that information is from. So the proposed breakdown for this project, the land contribution from the town is expected to be worth $1.4 million. Wheatland Housing Management Body apparently is going to be coming up with $800,000. The municipal contribution altogether will be $4.65 million. As you can see there, the provincial grant that was applied for is $18.8 million. There's something called a forgivable loan portion that is applied either over the first 10 years or at the end of 10 years. I'm not clear on which that is. And then also there's the CMHC mortgage, which will be for in the area of 31 million. If the rest of those funding sources were to come to bear. There's a fancy pie chart that I made to show the various kind of sources. As you can see, the green one, which makes up most, is the mortgage. And then the big yellow one there is the provincial grant. So obviously if the provincial grant doesn't come through, that's going to be a problem. So the operating cost. Now this is the projected operating expenses for years 1 to 3, and this includes debt servicing. And debt servicing is $1.4 million per year, as you can see there. And this is, again, as per the Weiss WHMB presentation given on April 18th, 2024. And so as you can see from years 1 to 3, the operating costs go from 3.6 million up to about 4.6 million. A question I received was, why is it going up so much? And that's because it just has to do with the fact that they will be bringing in more people, more residents, as they build up to capacity over the first few years. And so obviously in the first year, they won't be spending as much on, say, food and employees and stuff like that. So it's the operating costs are less. Why these matter?
Jason,
Yeah, go ahead.
could you go back to that one?
Yep.
So those numbers, I'm still processing. I've read them in the agenda package. I'm still trying to get them around. They don't look exactly like. Look, the thing that's stuck in my head is that, you know, the operation of this lodge is going to cost the residents of Strathmore no more than a pizza a year. That number is just stuck with me. So we were talking about a tax increase of, I don't know, $55 per resident. If we just go with the idea of a % increase, now obviously this includes the county's contribution, but
Sorry, let me just, maybe I
Please.
could clear something up for you. So this is the operating expenses. So this doesn't basically include the revenues against those expenses. So this is
Okay, thank
just
you.
what they'll be spending. Okay. And if anyone has any other questions, I'd be happy to
That's
answer those.
part of the what if.
Well, this is according to the consultant who put together the
yeah, this
the
was,
pro forma.
I do recall this is the consultant's what if.
Yeah, yeah. And so why this matters. So I looked up the Alberta Housing Act, which is what the town of Strathmore and Wheatland Housing Management Body, that's kind of what governs the relationship between those two bodies. And Section 7.1 of the Alberta Housing Act says that on or before April 30th in any year, a management body that provides lodge accommodations may requisition those municipalities for which the management body provides lodge accommodations for, A, the amount of the management body's annual deficit for the previous fiscal year arising from the provision of lodge accommodations, and then also any amounts necessary to establish or continue a reserve fund. So simply, this means that the town of Strathmore taxpayers, as well as Wheatland County taxpayers, are responsible for covering the losses of Wheatland Housing Management Body operations for the preceding year, however much that may be. And covering this loss is not optional. We are bound to do it. They just give us a bill
I have
and
a
we
question,
pay it.
Your Worship.
Councillor Peterson.
So when you say that you are responsible to cover the losses, what we're actually talking about is that we voted to many years, probably before you were born, to enter into an agreement to fund the lodge. So it's not funding losses anymore, Councillor Montgomery, than, you know, we could say the town funds 2.1 million for the arena and the swimming pool. But we don't say in our vernacular, thank you, in our pedagogy, we don't say we fund the loss and it's not optional, you know, and so you know, the buildings run. And
Sorry,
so,
is there a question here?
and so my question to you, Councillor Montgomery, is, do you support the lodge project?
Sorry, I'm not going to answer that question right now. Like I said, I'm doing a presentation, and I'll address your point about the difference. So
But
the
I did
difference,
ask you a question right now, Councillor Montgomery. That's what 10.1 is.
Yeah,
It's questions between
well,
councillors.
You can ask that at the end, I guess. Thank you. So to deal with,
No,
with the
you
point,
don't get to decide.
to deal with the point that you're raising, and I'm trying to flip back to the previous slide, but I can't. But so the difference, Councillor Peterson, is that so there isn't an act that says that the town must run the pool at a loss or must pay for all losses of any of our facilities. We have the option of reducing services, of shutting things down, of doing whatever we want to stymie the losses of those facilities. The difference, as I pointed out earlier, is the Housing Act says that we must cover whatever they send us as their previous year's deficit. That's the difference.
So no, there is another difference, Councillor Montgomery, that's quite profound that you're missing. So the difference came through a series of judicial provincial legislation, but covering a deficit is not the same as you're characterizing it here, because what actually used to happen was that we would do funding agreements with our municipalities, and those funding agreements would then fund the lodge going forward. So we funded at the front end as opposed to the back end. So it was a different way of doing business in the last few years, and I know you're not aware of that. But characterizing it in the way you've characterized it is not necessarily useful, I think, to the conversation.
Thanks. Yeah, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. I'm fully aware of the changes that have been made in recent years with regards to how these must be dealt with. And just going based on, as I said, the current Housing Act, it says that we must, right here, Section 7.1 says that we must cover the annual deficit for the previous fiscal year. It's the law.
I'm very aware. Your Worship, I also want to point out to Councillor Montgomery that 10.1 says it's not just questions, it's comments and questions.
Right, but when you can make your comments when it's your turn on this is, I'm happy to accept questions.
She did have the floor.
I'm happy to accept questions.
As far as your terminology, when you talk about deficits and losses, when it comes to a lodge, we're talking people's lives. Councillor Wiley.
Yeah, mine's just another point of clarification. So when I talk to residents, most people I talk to are very much in support of the lodge. But one resident I was just talking to recently, he was like, wait, does that mean that the town would be, and his term is last dollar funder? And this is what you're answering right here, is that we are taking on, the municipality and potentially the county is taking on what's called the last dollar funder. So if things go badly, I'm just clarifying, if things go badly, then this is all on Strathmore and Wheatland taxpayers. The operating is on us, not the province.
Yeah, that is the implication of all these numbers. Okay, is that and the reason why I'm giving this presentation is because up until this point there has not been, let's say, this clarity of information shared with council, and so I want to make sure that that council is fully aware of the possible implications of what we might be getting into should we continue down this road. We obviously support the lodge project. However, it would probably be, I think, probably beneficial to at least be aware of some of these numbers. And as Councillor Wiley, as you pointed out, yes, the reason why, if we could provide, to your point, Mayor Fuel, if we could provide seniors housing for $1 a year, I wouldn't be giving this presentation. But as I'll show later, it's not going to be $1 per year that we need to be concerned about. So
you could question that about anything that the town runs. I mean, you use the pool quite a bit with your family.
Listen, I'm happy to give answers, okay, but I don't want to debate right now, please and thank you, okay?
But here you are making strong statements. Like you've made a strong statement that judges the amount of information that was given out. You're not
But,
But
at the
in
end of my
your
presentation, at the end of my presentation, please, you're free to give your own opinion, but I'll answer any questions that anybody has for clarity.
So
okay?
if I'm bothered by something you say, I should write it down and mention it later on then.
I don't mind
So
debating
if your
at the end, but I just,
terminology is disturbing,
yeah, like if you want to mention that, that's fine. I'd rather answer questions, and then at the end, if you want to debate it, or later we can debate it, but I'm happy to answer questions.
Your Worship, I just in terms of a clarification, when Councillor Montgomery is, I think you said, what was your terminology with regards to everything falling on the Strathmore and Wheatland taxpayers?
Taxpayers are responsible for covering the losses of Wheatland Housing Management Body operations for the preceding year.
Mm-hmm. And you said you wanted to let people know because it was the only, this presentation that you're giving was the only one that was showing this? Is that what I heard you say?
Let's just say that there has not been a presentation to council in council chambers by our representatives for the Wheatland Housing Management Body.
So, Your Worship?
Which is where it probably should have come from.
So, Your Worship, if I could just refute that, because in this council chambers, we had Derek Weiss, who is a well-known
Listen,
provincial...
again, you're debating.
I'm
please,
not
if you have
debating.
questions, I can answer, but just let me get my thing out, okay? And then you can say what you need to at the end, please.
So I think
but
when
Councillor
you...
Montgomery, you're making these statements
erroneous statements
that
and
are
highly
just,
inflammatory.
that are out there in the air now for people
I
to
guess,
hear,
yeah,
and nobody can question your statements until the very end.
No, you can ask a question,
So
and
I did
I
ask
will
you a question.
clarify, and I did clarify, okay, but there's no need to follow up with a statement. You can follow up at the end, please.
Well, I don't think you get to decide that, Councillor Montgomery.
I'm pretty sure it's my time
so-
to speak right now.
well-
Anyways, so why these matter? Over the course of the past few years, there have been different proposed plans for the lodge. These plans have ranged from ones that included varying levels of supported living, as you mentioned, Councillor Wiley, to the current iteration, which is strictly independent living. And I make a point of that because, it's been brought up that me just asking questions is, obviously a sign of my ignorance. But what I've been trying to do is actually
That
just
is
kind
not
of state.
true.
I'm sorry, I'm
Mayor,
speaking right
that
now.
is not true.
I'm speaking right
Again,
now. Thank
it's an
you.
untrue statement.
I didn't attribute it to anybody, but if you want to take credit for it, by all means. So, so I want to point out that my information is based on the current iteration and not based on previous ones or based on, old, interest rates, old numbers, that type of thing. This is the best up-to-date information that this council should have information to.
Again, that's an opinion.
Thank you very much. I have asked many questions with the intent to determine what the budget implications are for the town of Strathmore taxpayers, because, in the end, that's what matters. It matters how many dollars our residents have in the end of the day in their pocket to go to the grocery store and to, buy things, that they need. So it certainly matters what the budget implications are for the town of Strathmore should the Lodge Hospice project come to fruition. My question to myself is, what is the risk? And I've been trying to answer that question. What is the risk?
Your Worship, may I please
So,
ask a question?
Sorry, Deputy Mayor Langmaid, question?
Yes, please.
Just going back to your slide, I recognize that you have asked many questions with the intent to determine the budget implications. I recognize that. But I just want some clarification. It's based on my memory, which is faulty, but could be right sometimes. You have voted in support of the Lodge project in every decision this council has made.
Correct, yep.
Given that being true, why are we hearing this now? At what point did the support for the resolutions that you have publicly given through your votes, why are we hearing this now?
Sorry, why are we hearing information about the numbers of the Lodge project?
Well, what I'm wondering is, if you've had concerns for so long.
No, these aren't concerns. Sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
So if you've had, I'm interpreting these as concerns, because you're talking about risk, and risk has to do with concern.
Yep.
So if you've had these concerns going along, that seems to be not in line with how you have voted publicly in support of this project. So I'm wondering if you've had these concerns, but you've been able to put them aside to vote in favor. What has changed now that after so many votes in favor, you feel that you need to bring this presentation forward now?
Well, as you can see on the citations from my slides, the meetings that this information was presented at is very recent. So the latest meeting was April 18th. And so obviously, you know, not that much time has transpired since then. And then also like the other meeting I refer to is April 12th. So this is new information, I would say, and that's why, and so up until now, as Councillor Peterson can attest to, they did not actually present a lot of this information in public until the April 18th meeting. So until then, and yeah, you know, I was happy to go along, and I'm like, as I said, I'm not. This isn't meant to, you know, be, you know, say Lodge is bad or Lodge is good. This is just, you know, if we want to do this project, here's what we're getting into. Let's walk into it with eyes open, and let's make sure we know what we're getting into. I want, you know what, I always want give it to me, you know, as like as ugly as it needs to be, so that I know exactly what I'm getting into. And you know, that doesn't mean that I'm not going to make, you know, the decision to support something. That just means I want to walk in with eyes open, and we all should as well.
And if I could ask one more follow-up question.
Absolutely.
It's also my understanding, again, could be inaccurate, but it's my understanding that the approvals that the town has voted in favor of, and that this council has resolved we've approved them, and is what I'm trying to say. All of them have had off-ramps in terms of funding
And still do.
and opportunities for the town to say, no, this project isn't what we signed up for. It's not meeting the outline that we've included in our approvals. Therefore, we're out. Now, it's my understanding that one of those outlines was around funding and receiving full funding from all the partners in this project. It's also my understanding that recently Wheatland County has pulled their support for the project and refused to put further dollars forward, in which case that, to me, would be one of the off-ramps we've identified. So all of that being said, and thank you for putting up with my preamble, what I'm wondering is, still again, why now? Because this seems like we have this seems like the project is stalled at this moment. So I'm wondering what is the, other than sharing information, what is the goal, the outcome? Because I'm not sure if there's a decision here for us to make any further. So I'm wondering why we're having this discussion.
No, I believe that I guess Wheatland Housing could tell you if they're giving up on this project altogether, then you know what, and they're willing to say that, I can end this right now. But I don't believe that's the case. I read in the paper today that they will keep applying, so I'm under the impression this is all still a live issue.
All right. Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
I have a question.
And thank you for the question.
I wonder if we could ask Glenn Kester to step forward.
No, listen, I'm like,
But
listen.
No, but you just made a statement, and he possibly has an answer for that statement.
And you know what? If I want to ask him, I'll do
But
that.
if the answer.
But what about what we want? What about what we want?
But Jason,
when it's your turn to have your time, you're more than
Councillor
welcome
Montgomery.
to do that. Yes, sir.
But if you've read something in the paper and you believe the lodge is still going ahead with the project full steam, wouldn't it be a good idea to ask the chair of the board if that's an action? Maybe they were misquoted. I don't know. I didn't read the paper today. So why wouldn't we want to hear their answer?
Because I'd rather not.
But that's what you'd rather
have this
not.
drag on any longer than it absolutely needs to be. So if I could continue.
Thank
you.
So in other words, then we should just let the presentation occur, and if we really want it to not drag on, nobody ask any questions. We'll just let the presentation go.
I'll tell you what. Let's just get through this, okay, please? Come on.
Your Worship, may I ask just a point of clarification?
Yeah.
Has the chair of this meeting changed?
It's changed to the presenter.
Because
yeah.
I'm very sorry, Councilor
really the
Montgomery, but it's
presenter-
really important to me that we respect the chair.
That's absolutely
And-
correct.
And I feel like you're trying to chair this meeting from the podium
I've
while
never
you're
seen
giving
anybody
me.
get cut off this much during anything in my life.
well,
That's- I
to
mean,
be-
like,
to be
I didn't.
Well, I think you've asked
Unexpected.
lots of questions
to be fair,
of people
Councillor
in
Munn.
past presentations.
I'm totally willing to answer questions about the presentation, all the numbers, all the information, where I got it, you know, why I think that. I'm totally fine with that. I just, like I said, I'd rather not debate it right now. But I'm totally willing to debate, you know, at the end. But I just, please, let me let these people go home. Come on.
Well, they can go home at any time. Councillor Kester, if you would step forward later then and tell us what the housing board is, their plans are going forward.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Like that's totally fine. So
I have another question, Your Worship.
Councillor Peterson.
Was not all the information, in fact, that you mentioned on the April 18th meeting, when you said that was the only, you know, the new information coming forward, was not the majority of that information exactly the same as the two previous pro formas? Like by far the majority of the information was very, very similar?
I didn't do a
In
lot.
other
I
words, that
didn't do
the mortgage payment hadn't changed, the amortization rate had not shifted, the rates of CMHC, APHA, you know, or APHH, all of those, the concerns around the hospice and their share, none of those had changed in those presentations from presentation to presentation, Councillor Montgomery. So I'm uncertain about your assertion that this was the, you know, all new information.
Oh, yeah, so I guess to speak to that, so what came out that was important, okay?
That you have decided was important.
Right, exactly. So what is important to me is how much money the taxpayers will be on the hook for. That is what's, excuse me, I'm answering your question. So what came out at that meeting that was different was the losses, the potential losses that the lodge will face for operating. That's what is new information. So
it wasn't new to me, Councillor Montgomery, and it wasn't new to the other people that have been in the performance.
Thank you for saying that.
And for the other people who sat in the public performance or went onto the public websites to see all the information. And I'm sorry that you didn't understand or that you didn't choose to go out and look at those. But the other thing too, Councillor Montgomery, is that people did know how much it cost, because the same night that you received your censure, I brought forward a sheet of paper that talked about exactly how much it cost each taxpayer, which is what you're trying to do tonight, right? And so when I said at that last time that you were bringing forward things that amplified the risks in a way that was completely unreasonable, and your assertion of 8 to 10 times the amount, you know, and that nobody had shown that, and yet at that very meeting, there was the tax rates from 2023 requisition.
Oh,
right there.
You must have got me, Councillor Peterson. And sorry, did you just say just now that you knew what the potential losses were?
I'm saying that.
Did you say that? No, I'm sorry. Did you just say that you knew what the potential losses were?
What I said, Councillor Montgomery, was that from the first pro forma to the second pro forma to the third pro forma, there was consistent information across the board.
Did you know what the losses were?
Not that it was all the same.
Did you know what the losses were?
We knew what the perspectives were. We knew what the prospectives
Did
were
you know
from the
that there-
algorithms that were performed.
Councillor Montgomery, it feels like you're now interrogating her. So let's just carry on with the presentation, Councillor Peterson.
Sure.
I'm good.
Okay, so we just heard Councillor Peterson say that she knew what the
That's not what I said.
sorry, that's what
Your
I'm asking.
Worship.
Clarify, please. So
You know what?
Did you know that the lodge would lose money?
No, so Councillor Montgomery likes to get into the what ifs, and he likes to create scenarios, and then he likes to build narratives around scenarios and bring them forward in the way he has tonight. And I'm fine with that. Everybody has the right to do that.
If you're fine, please let me finish.
And, but putting those scenarios, those narratives in my mouth is not what I said. And if you want to put the three performers up on the board, we can have a robust discussion. But you don't have them.
No, that's
I have
okay.
them here. You can take a look.
Yeah, no, listen, I'll if you'd like to present that
And
afterwards,
so what my point is, and what my question to you is, Councillor
Montgomery,
Montgomery, did you not know that I had brought this forward at that meeting? That I had actually brought this forward, that there was good information about the requisitions that people were paying. And so exactly what you said, here is the money that is coming out of your pocket, right here. You know what? I forgot that you did it because you said your computer died and I think you didn't have a cord to plug it in. I believe that's what happened.
My phone died, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and you had no cords. So maybe you didn't, after all, have the ability to see that. So I feel sorry for you that you didn't see that. And please carry on with your presentation.
Yes, thank you. And just for the public's information, I guess what Councillor Peterson did was she got a third party to analyze just what the lodge would cost taxpayers. She, of course, even though my email, anyways, thank you. And thank you very much for your polite comments, Councillor Peterson. So at the March 27th, 2024 council meeting, Councillor Richard Wagner said, and he's one of the Wheatland and Area Hospice board members, he said, everything going according to plan, there should be approximately about $100,000 surplus, and that is on an annual basis, I believe. And further, it's an estimation based on the full occupancy of the lodge.
Councillor Wagoner.
Sorry, do you have a question?
Does it matter?
No, it doesn't have.
If you have a statement, then save it for your own time, please. Thank you.
Do you know what? This is my time here.
I'm going to make a ruling here. If you make statements about a councillor, they should be able to defend themselves.
that
You
is a
are not the
direct-
chair here.
It's a
You are
direct
not the
quote.
chair. Why can he not respond to something you say? Even if it's a quote from him, why can't he not? You are not the chair, so I'm going to allow him to make his comment.
Let's keep this together.
Thank you. Yeah, I did make that quote. When we talk about and go back to these performers and that, I listen to the experts. Derek Weiss and M3, I listen to our building committee. Barry Architect. Those are the people that I trust on this. You had surgery years ago. Did you trust your doctors? Did you question them on every little thing? I had my knee surgery. I did not question my doctors. I trusted them. They're professionals. They are bound by ethics and code of conduct. This being said, it was said that based on 98% plus occupancy, there will be $100,000 a year approximate surplus. And I did say that based on 98 or based on occupancy rates. So with that, yeah, I still stand by that. I haven't heard anything that changes that. Is it everything going according to plan? Well, right now, no, because it seems like it's over. But going back to that, the $100,000 a year surplus, I will stand by that according to the Derek Weiss performance. Also, one of the things, the building committee and the consultants have been working extremely hard to keep costs down. Sure, right now we're at a $59 million budget as compared to a $52 million budget. Things went up over the last several months while this was going on. But in that same point, they have taken the amortization period from 50 years down to 39, I believe it is, 35 to 39 years. So
Do you have a question, Councillor Wagner?
it's not a question.
No.
I have no question.
And please wait for your time to speak, okay? Honestly,
You're not the chair. You're not
you
the
guys
chair.
like.
No,
Happy
but
to
if you
answer
make a
questions.
strong statement about a councillor, I, as the chair, can allow him to make a statement. Your statements regarding what the surplus will be can definitely serve in the public's eyes to question him as a councillor, because you're putting his statements out there as if there's some incorrect or there's some problems with it. So and it's taken out of context. He's allowed to respond to that, and I'm the chair, so I'll let him respond.
It's not
You're a
out of context.
presenter. You're not the chair.
It's not out of context.
Are you finished, Councillor Wegener? Did you want to say any more? Carry on with your presentation.
Thank you. So, Councillor Wagner, one of our representatives who's supposed to be informing us about the project, so you.
Every time you make a judgment statement on someone, I'm going to mute you. You say something like, he's supposed to keep us informed. You have this subtle way of making criticisms of people that I believe are not proper as far as treating a fellow councillor who has been on this committee for several years trying to do the right thing, trying to do good work. So when you make these comments with veiled criticisms of them, I'm going to, as chair, mute you. So carry on with your presentation, but avoid any kind of criticisms or veiled comments about them. No, that's actually, you make these kind of sarcastic, veiled criticisms, and then everyone's supposed to sit back and let you say them about them, and I'm not going to allow that. So carry on with your presentation as far as the numbers. You've got the quote here of Councillor Wegener. You don't need any kind of hints or veiled comments about how he was supposed to bring us information. That creates doubt in people's minds the way you do that. So carry on with your presentation. Next page.
Yes, thank you, sir. So I'll repeat, Councillor Wagner said that there would be a $100,000 surplus, and he apparently got that from the consultant that I got these same numbers from.
Perfect.
When I asked, and these are quotes, okay, so I'm not making a statement. I asked, not counting debt servicing, will there be an increase in what the town pays to WHMB as a result of the new lodge becoming operational? So I just asked, will we pay more money when the new lodge opens? Councillor Peterson said, we don't know. That was a direct quote, we don't know. Councillor Wagner, well, and so I didn't ask, I just want to clarify something here. I didn't ask how much more will the town pay. I said, will the town pay more? So anybody that had seen the information up until the March 27th meeting would have had this answer. So my question was, again, not counting debt servicing, will there be an increase in what the town pays to Wheatland Housing? Councillor Wagner said, from the way I understand it, there won't be. There should not be an increase in requisitions. The requisitions, as I understand them, are not going to change at any point, or at this point, if anything, minimal. So here are the projected surpluses or losses. They're red because they're losses for years 1 to 3, and this includes debt servicing. So what this is a reflection of is the fact that in year 1, the lodge will...
I have a question. Can you just tell me where this is on the proforma? What page of the proforma this was on that you got this from?
I don't have it in front of me, unfortunately. It's in there, though.
I have a question.
These are not the numbers.
What is your lodge occupancy rate for year 1 to show that?
I believe their consultant estimated that year 1 they would be at 50% capacity.
He did 3 different scenarios.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
But based on similar sized municipalities and lodges.
And what is the current waiting list for the lodge right now?
Like 26 people, maybe?
26,
So that's a
27?
mischaracterization, Your Worship.
Carry on.
Councillor Wiley.
Sure. So these comments I started to make too soon earlier. So this is the slide then that shows when we subtract the 50% occupancy, what they're paying. This number in red is the losses for year 1, year 2, and year 3. And I just want to clarify, when I see that number, I know that a $200,000 expense for the town is approximately a 1% tax increase. And so if in year 1, it's not impossible, but if in year 1 we were to be at a 50% occupancy, which the consultant said is a scenario, a likely scenario, that would be an 11% tax increase.
Well, so keep in mind, this is the total amount. This is their total deficit. And so this amount would be split between essentially Wheatland County and the town.
Your Worship, this is again a what if, and I would really, really like the chair of Wheatland Housing Management Body, who's also a member of the hospice, to speak to this exact scenario.
Thank you. Mr. Kester, would you come
But
forward?
this is not an unrealistic what if. This is
I
the
think you need to
consultant's
hear.
what
You just need to
if
hear.
based on.
You just need to hear
Okay.
the scenario. But if Glenn could speak to it, I think it would bring a
Mr.
lot more
Kester,
clarity.
would you be able to speak to the numbers on this page?
First off, I'm not an expert, just a dumb farmer. But I see the numbers here where you got them from, I believe, from this line here, and you added 700,000 on, right?
This is the total
Yeah.
losses, yeah.
But this number here already includes the 700,000. So in essence, you've added on 700,000 twice. Those aren't the, those are, I've got the pro forma here.
No, well, you can see that it's 1.5 million before we add in the 700,000.
What's that number there?
Yeah, that's 700,000.
That's the 700,000 that was added onto there, that's added onto here. And the total is,
This number here is not that number up there, though.
I know,
Yeah.
the number that should be up there is 1,541,652
For year one?
for year one.
When you add, well, again,
And Your Worship, you know, one of the other things that would really help before Councillor Montgomery proceeds would be, Councillor Kester, don't leave. You know, when you've talked to the public in all of the multiple consultations that we've had across this county and in this community about the options that we have in the losses in year 1, 2, and 3. And maybe it's a good time for people watching at home, and you know, Councillor Wiley's asked some really insightful questions, to talk about the concept of these lodge numbers relevant to this.
Councillor Peterson, when it's your time to have a statement made,
you're not sharing.
You're more
Councillor
than welcome to do
Montgomery.
that.
I'm going to come back to...
I'm literally in the middle of a presentation.
But you're not the chair, so Councillor Kester, Mr.
Are you
Kester,
ending my
I have a question.
presentation?
No, I have a question for him based on what he just finished saying.
Well,
So
this
my
is again
question
time
for
to
Mr.
speak.
Kester is that number year one, 2,241,652, is it correct? In your view, based on the pro forma?
On the pro forma I have here in my hand,
Yes.
and it is in the first year 50% occupancy,
Yes.
second year 80%, I believe,
Okay.
and third year 98%.
Thank you. And are those...
Estimated cash surplus in the first year is a negative $1,541,652.
Which is...
Year two?
See right there?
Yep, that's year one.
Yep.
And year two
634,
is
144.
is negative $334,144.
So this is different than the first numbers you showed. The first numbers you showed had the $700,000 in it. Why are these numbers different, Councillor Montgomery, then?
So, yeah, if I could finish, whenever I can finish my presentation, I'll answer your question. So, but yeah, get whatever questions you need answered from Mr. Kester here.
So in the third year is a positive 399,852, same number up there.
Okay.
But the middle number is different. I'd like to point out too, to the people watching, there's 3 different scenarios in these performance. One's at a 80% at vacancy rate in the first year, no, 50% the first year, 80 the second, and 98 the third. There's also one out there, I believe, 80 the first year and full the second year. So there'll be different numbers for different pages. This is the most, this one takes into account 3 years to fill up. So it's the most, it's the worst one.
Okay.
Right? I'm not going to get into
Okay, so
what
we've
I
got a
feel.
couple of pages of what ifs then.
Yeah, they're all
Okay,
what ifs.
thank you.
This performer is a what if.
Thank you.
Okay, so we would lose the first couple of years, those numbers. So that middle number, those numbers, and the way I read the performa, we have our rentals, and we have total revenue, and then we have building operations and total expenses. And then we have our debt servicing, and that $700,000 is in the debt servicing for the municipalities. And I'd also like to make it known at this time, it's not only Strathmore and Wheatland, it's Standard and Rocky Ford and Azar. Each one, each member, each person within the greater Strathmore, Wheatland area contributes the same amount of money compared to anybody else. But that 700,000, I believe, is in that number. I don't think it's correct to add it in again. And there was a question before about surplus. There is in that first year $190,000 surplus. And I believe that is a requirement of CMHC for a sustainable future lodge into the future, make it sustainable into the future.
Where's the surplus in the first year?
Right there.
How can you have a loss and a surplus at the same time?
Because it's a mandatory replacement reserve. It's not a surplus, it's a mandatory reserve. Replacement reserve is what they call it.
Yeah, well, they are building the reserves in this budget, that's true. That is true.
Thank you, Mr. Kester. Carry on.
Thank you. Just to clarify, so well, I'll get to it later, I guess, but so these are the actual numbers before the town or the county or the villages, and to address Councillor Kester's point about the villages. So the way, well, I'll get to that later, actually. So these are the actual losses for, well, as you can see, for the first 11 years. They range from 2.2 million to to basically 442,000, and beyond year 11, they are in that 442,000 range.
I have a question for you. How can you present these as the lodge numbers if the pro forma and Mr. Kester are showing that they may not be those numbers?
These are from the pro forma, so yeah. So so to address the $700,000 that Councillor Kester brought up, and then he also brought it up at the March 27th meeting, and so municipalities will be as part of, let's say, making the budget work, as far as like kind of when they present it to like CMHC and whatnot, municipalities will be required to set a base level of new financial contributions for the new lodge totaling $700,000 per year. And that will be used basically to knock the deficits down from this to a lower number. So as Councillor Kester pointed out, it won't be 2.2 million that's lost in the first year, because we'll be adding $700,000, and so the loss will actually be $1.5 million. So this will mean that when the new lodge is finished, the town of Strathmore taxpayers will see an increase of our proportional share of that $700,000, or $230,000 per year is what will be expected to contribute. And that's, again, based on the March 27th meeting. So a frequently asked question is, I've heard that the new lodge will produce a surplus. Is that accurate? And the answer to that is that these surpluses are achieved with $700,000 of new funds being contributed from the municipalities on an annual basis, or they would be losses or deficits as shown on a previous slide. So when you add in the $700,000, in the first year, the loss is $1.5 million. In the second year, according to my numbers, $634,000 is lost. And in the third year, there is a budget surplus of $399,000, $852. And then in years 4 to 11, you can see the surpluses range from $468,000 to $257,000. And again, that is with the injection of $700,000 extra dollars. Go ahead, Mr. Wiley.
So the $700,000 is a increase in requisition that both the county and the town would share? Is the assumption that both the town and the county would share that?
Yeah, well, so, I mean, like, to be totally upfront, it's shared by Wheatland County, the town of Strathmore, and then the villages. We all split it. And I'll be getting to the splitting in a future slide here. And so I guess just to go back to this, you can see the surpluses, which are created with basically extra money going in.
So after, if you want to go back one slide, please.
Yep.
So after an increase in requisitions to the different municipalities of $700,000 a year, that's when the surplus occurs. Only if we're talking a 98% occupancy in both the current existing lodge and the 120 unit new lodge.
So this only deals with the new lodge right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's under the assumption that the old lodge remains at full occupancy.
Correct, yeah, yeah. So, and again, so this is just to go back to what those previous numbers said. And so this is without the $700,000 increased contribution factored in. Okay, so this is just the bare numbers as they are. So the lodge numbers, what does this mean for the town of Strathmore taxpayers? As mandated by the Alberta Housing Act, the town of Strathmore and Wheatland County split, and as Councillor Peterson mentioned, this was voted on a long time ago. We split Wheatland Housing Management Body losses based on a metric called equalized assessment. Equalized assessment is where the value of all properties within their respective borders of the municipality are totaled and compared to determine their appropriate share of WHMB losses.
Your worship, they're not losses, they're operating costs.
It's a deficit, if that makes it more clear. It's money that is spent more than what is taken in. So a loss, a deficit, it's money that needs to be made up.
It's money that's requisitioned, I think, is a good thing, you know, because, I don't know, Councillor Montgomery, on your taxes, but my $50 a year with this new worst-case scenario is really nothing compared to the $500 I pay in education tax, also required by government. Are you going to come back with another presentation on our education requisition tax and talk about that too? Because we're tied into that too. Yeah, just a question, like, you know, a question.
I mean, like, you know what, I guess if somebody was coming here and proposing that we build, you know, a handful of new schools, I would want to know the implications, and for sure, yeah. And so in our case, the town of Strathmore's share is about 1/3 of the total, and Wheatland County's is roughly 2/3. I didn't mention the villages there because the villages make up about 0.5% of the total. So the town of Strathmore's share currently is about 33%. And then, as I mentioned, the villages make up like about 0.5%. And then Wheatland County pays the other, 60-something%. So it's almost entirely us. Yeah, the actual numbers, I mean, like that the villages contribute would be in the low thousands of dollars, like just a few $1,000s essentially. So this is the projected losses for year one. What this means for the town of Strathmore taxpayers is when the new lodge becomes operational, we will be obligated to pay 1/3 of the aforementioned deficit, which is this $1.5 million. And I broke it out simply because this is how it's kind of broken out in the information. And then we would pay the 1/3 of the deficit plus the built-in contribution increase of $230,000. So in the first year, the town of Strathmore, if Wheatland Housing was to achieve that 50% occupancy, we would see what the town pays increase by $743,000. And then year two, as you can see, as they fill up more, the amount that the town, just the town, not the town and the county, but just the town, we would pay about $440,000. And then beyond that, if they were, at the capacity that they mentioned, we would still be contributing that $230,000. It wouldn't be called a requisition, I don't think, because requisitions are for losses, and this would just basically be we're creating a surplus for you type of thing. I did ask at the presentation about whether or not that could be returned. I don't know that. What I learned throughout this presentation, actually putting it together, was that some of my own conceptions of the project were needed to be refined. As far as I gained a better understanding of, for instance, the requisition system, and that's why I changed this to say contribution instead of requisition, because it's technically not a requisition when they're asking for more, unless it was to go to reserves.
Councillor Wiley.
Yeah, if you want to please go back.
Yep.
So, and again, this is under the assumption that everything goes according to plan. I've heard it said that this is the worst case scenario. I would hardly say a 50% occupancy in the new build is the worst case scenario, and that 100% occupancy in the previous lodge is the worst case scenario. And especially considering, and taxpayers need to understand this, that we are the last dollar funder. I'm going to repeat that all night. So if anything goes wrong, we don't have a province to sweep in and save us. We are now operating a lodge, and it is our responsibility to keep that lodge operating. And And that's something that really needs to be sunk in here.
So I think what's really important, Your Worship, is that what really needs to be sunk in here is what it costs each taxpayer. So when we over-amplify the costs in this way, and we dramatize this to this extraordinary degree, it's not useful to scare taxpayers. And so I think that we need to, that every taxpayer, when people come to me to ask, what does a 163% increase mean? Or what is a times two, a 700,000, times two? What does that mean to my taxes? What do I have to pay? This is the question that people want answered.
Yeah, Councillor Montgomery, do you have what it would mean, what this kind of an increase would mean to an average homeowner in Strathmore as far as how much their property taxes would go up by for the lodge?
So just based on that 743, if we were actually to do an increase for that, you'd be looking at, like a 5% probably increase?
Let's talk about what
Just
it
for
would
that
cost
year.
on your tax
On your
bill.
taxes, on your
So
bill.
in an average home
Yeah,
of
5%.
$450,000 in Strathmore, I don't know, is that average?
429.
Well,
is the-
429? So let's this is what Councillor
Well, no, listen,
Wiley.
as I said, if you want to debate this later, we can
I'm
debate
not
this later.
debating it. This is a
But,
question, Councillor Montgomery. How much is it going to cost the average taxpayer? Because you're doing this hysterical, presentation.
Let's not make any judgments on what he's
Well,
doing.
keep
Okay,
in mind the
so,
average
all right,
taxpayer's
so-
taxes
so-
just went up by
So
5% this year.
absolutely, my
so-
taxes went up too, Councillor Wiley. So let's talk about actual numbers. What does it actually cost the taxpayer in their home? Because that's what they want to know, Councillor Wiley. They want to know what it's going to cost them on their taxes. What is, what do they get for the 5.6% that the town charges them plus? What do they get in terms of seniors' cost in requisition? And what do they get in terms of education costs? And how does that reflect on the bottom line on their tax bill? That's what people come and ask me every day. And I can explain it in 3 easy lines and not a 49-slide presentation.
And let's not make any.
You know what people ask me is, when are you going to stop raising taxes, Councillor Wiley?
Well, I think, Councillor Wiley, we've had, in the last 4 years, we've had very low tax increases. We had 0 in 2020. I think the 2021 was very low, 2.3 in 2022. We've had very low tax increases in this town. It's only this year that we've had a big one. But my question to Councillor Montgomery is, do you know how much the tax would go up for an average homeowner? So if the average home price is $429,000 in Strathmore, do you know how much, if that was my home, how much I would have to pay for a new lodge monthly? How much would it be for me?
I'm sorry, I didn't calculate it for you.
But did you have any calculations for how much this would be for an average homeowner in Strathmore?
I can speak to that. So the average homeowner right now is stretched to the limit, okay?
No, I didn't ask that.
They
I
are
just said,
facing increased
my only
costs at the
question-
grocery store, at the...
Councillor Montgomery, my only question to you was, do you have an amount, if you have an average home price of $429,000, do you have an amount to show how much that person's taxes would go up for the new lodge in year 1, year 2, year 3? Do you have that figure?
So this wasn't, I'm getting this information from the consultant that was hired by WHMB, and the Wheatland Housing consultant did not calculate that, so we don't know what the implication is for the average taxpayer. But anyways, I'll continue. Thank you.
Dr. McNeely, do you have answers on the lodge portion? Okay, come on forward. I'd like to hear an answer.
I
for
just
that.
wonder what this looks like to people sitting at home watching this, all the interruptions that are going on during this presentation.
Well, I think it looks
bringing
like
up members of
I
the
think it looks
public
like we're trying to get all the information we can. We've allowed the presentation. I would just like to know if these, I mean, these are high numbers, and I would like to know how it impacts the average homeowner.
Yeah, it's going to be devastating for them.
It is? Or is that sarcasm? I can't tell.
You know, like I said, the average homeowner right now is stretched. They're getting, like their money taken, in ever increasing amounts by every level of government. You know, like.
Well,
it's-
again, I didn't ask that. I just asked how much it would go up. I'm not sure I'm seeing it here, Dr. McNeely.
This is probably a good question for administration that could have been asked ahead of time so that the information was prepared.
Well, I don't think you need to put it off on
Well, I wanna be
administration.
clear,
This is
though.
your
So
presentation.
administration will
I'm
not
saying
be
somebody,
commenting on
somebody
this.
should have asked administration for that information. It's not
But this is your
administration's
presentation. I'm just asking you the question. You're presenting on it.
So I figured out a tax assessment on resident number 1 and resident number 2. Resident number 1's total housing assessment is about $200,000 for their home. Their Wheatland Housing Management charge last year was $21.44, and with the anticipated increase, it would go up $13.50. The next resident of Strathmore, whose home is about $390,000. The Wheatland Housing Management charge last year was $37.89, and with the increase based on the new costs, would go up $23.87.
Which costs are those reflecting? Like the 2.2 million?
The total costs.
Thank you.
Okay, so yeah, it's not clear whether that's the 1.5 million or which number of millions we're talking there. So, and I'll repeat the question that I asked
But
earlier.
at least she has some sort of an answer as far as how
You
much.
definitely could have asked me that, and I could have got the information ahead of time.
But this is your
if,
presentation. Why didn't you have it prepared? Like why would you show just the high dollar value, but not show what that impact would be on a monthly bill for a person? Like, why not show both? Because the high figure is very scary to people.
Yeah.
But the monthly, if someone tells me, if my uncle is going to the new lodge and someone tells me that's going to cost you an extra $35 a month, I'm putting them in the new lodge.
Mm-hmm.
But if I see this big number, I'm going to be scared off. There are ways to present figures, and this isn't my presentation, but you could have done that. It's not up to me to ask beforehand.
Mr. Mayor, if you had asked me that question ahead of time, I would have been happy to get you the information. So in the future, I'll be better prepared, though.
No, it's your presentation.
That's my mistake for sure.
$35 a year?
Yeah.
$35 a year for the new lodge. On a $399,000 home?
And that's based on what losses? What loss is that based on? Which
I don't think
year are we
Councillor
talking
Montgomery
about
understands the context, Your Worship. It's not based on the losses, it's based on the actual cost to every taxpayer to pay all those bills that he's presented. That's what the actual cost is.
The actual cost is the deficit of the previous year divided between the county and the
understand that.
town.
Equalized
and then-
assessment.
Yes, and then the
Yeah,
town has to
yes.
bill, and as we all know, what we had to charge our residents this year for taxes went up because of the fact that requisitions were up unexpectedly. So this is intended so that if we are gonna go ahead with the lodge project, we at least can walk in prepared budget-wise and not just go, whoops, who could have seen this coming? I guess we'll have to, raise taxes 11% this year.
So Your Worship, in respect of what Councillor Montgomery said, he's right. The taxes did go up this year, and they went up somewhat because of requisitions, not totally. No. Education requisitions were
They
also
went up unexpectedly.
very, very hefty, and initially we thought we were going to not have any education requisition. But in terms of the actual amount, all in, even from 2023 to 2024, it's a matter of, on my taxes that I presented to council, which you weren't here to see, was a matter of pennies per month, even with our tax increase, Councillor Montgomery.
It's not actually that much. And you know what, Councillor Peterson, the privilege that you are displaying right now, the fact that you could just dismiss, $30 or $40, and just like act like that's nothing to people who are losing their homes, okay? People in our community can't even find a place to live.
Let's avoid the judgmental comments
And
on
then
both sides.
we have
Deputy Mayor Langmaid.
Thank you. I just have a question, and I've been hearing during your presentation and through the conversation on a lot of discussion of deficit, cost, losses. These are pretty loaded terms, very, and would bring concern to anyone. But would you say it would be disingenuous to look at it from the other perspective that we are being asked to invest this money in our seniors? We are being asked to invest this money as a community to ensure that for the years to come and decades to come, our seniors have access to attainable and affordable housing in our community so they can stay here. Would you say that that's a disingenuous characterization of that? Because that's my perspective I'm looking at from.
I'm totally fine with looking at it like an investment, but as any reasonably competent investor would do, they would want to know the numbers that they're getting into before they invest in something. And as I mentioned before, if we can house all seniors for $1 a year, I wouldn't be giving this presentation. If every senior cost $1 million a year, obviously that would be prohibitive. So there's got to be some point in between those 2 points where we need to have a discussion about what is what's worth doing and what's not. And I just want to bring information forward that I'm getting from public presentations that just so that council is aware. It's like, as I said at the start of this, it's not meant to tell you what to do. It's not meant to tell anybody what to do. It's just here's the information.
So when you say seniors are worth it, if seniors are worth it, is what you said.
No.
So I want to characterize...
the project.
Project is for seniors. So you said if seniors are worth it, those were your words.
Oh,
so
no, I
think
didn't say that, but thank you.
The $4.24 that I spend, I am happy to sacrifice that for seniors and the people that I see suffering in this community. And people are suffering. You're absolutely correct. Mm-hmm. I see Mayor Fuel volunteering at the food bank on a regular basis. I see other members of this council giving a lot of their time to working with people in significant need. Yep. And so we're extraordinarily well aware, the people sitting behind this desk. Yep. And so nobody makes these decisions lightly. We make them based on whether or not we should care for seniors in our community. That's it. And that's why I ask you the question, are you or are you not in favor of doing this project to care for the seniors in our community for the next several decades?
I am interested in ensuring that seniors have good quality, safe homes or housing, however that has to happen. So whether it's the lodge, if that's the best option, then that's what should be done. However, if you'll let me finish, however, I have investigated, as I mentioned, I've investigated other forms of nonprofit seniors housing, and I know that the lodge is not the only option. So when I said earlier that we should be looking at this as, as whether it's worthwhile, the lodge project, whether it's worthwhile, yes. If we can house seniors with as good of quality, in some other fashion for less money and save the taxpayers a little bit of money, then that's what we should do. If the lodge is the most efficient and effective and the lowest cost way to do it, then that's what we should do. But I just want to make sure that we are getting, and I believe, this is only my opinion or my belief, but up until, recently, I believe that this information was not kind of well understood or even aware of by much of council. And that's why it's important that we, I guess, have this discussion. But, sorry, go ahead, Councillor Langmaid.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. I'm I'm concerned with what you're saying about council not being aware of these costs. It makes, that statement, I hope you understand, does reflect poorly on me and my support for this project when you make that claim. I just want to, I'm sorry, I know you're asking for questions, but this is going to be a statement. This is going to be a statement.
Yep.
I was very aware of these costs, maybe not in specific because projects change and are fluid things and evolve over time, but I was aware that this project was coming with a cost or an investment or a price tag on it. And I just want to make sure that you know and the community knows that I supported this project in full knowledge that it would have a cost. And to me, that cost is an investment in my community. Yep. And that is my responsibility as a councillor.
And you know what, I won't argue with what you knew at the time. I'll point to the slide right here where I asked, will there be an increase in what the town pays to Wheatland Housing as a result of the new lodge? Councillor Peterson said, we don't know, and Councillor Richard Wagner, said, there should not be an increase, it's not going to change, and if anything, it's minimal. So you might have known what you were voting on. I personally, I wasn't aware of some of these numbers.
The question and the statement is out of context, Your Worship, as usual.
So, this is to show what the actual numbers to the town, this is what the town will see for increased costs. Okay. And so then at the March 27th, so this is a what if, this is my own what if. Before this, I was running based on information that was directly gleaned from the consultants that work for WHMB. So I asked Councillor Kester if the provincial grant didn't come through, what would happen? And he said if the provincial grant didn't come through, we could pony up more as municipalities. I'm thinking it's around $13 million, okay? So the provincial grant application was for 18.8 million. If that's not received, that amount would have to be made up by a combination of increased contributions as a down payment from the municipalities and with the remainder borrowed from a lender such as CMHC. So, and just as I said, going based on what Councillor Kester, the board chairperson of the WHMB, said at that meeting, if they were to have to borrow 13 million out of that 18.8 million, that would leave 5.8 million that would need to be borrowed. And the town's share of that 5.8 million, if we use the breakdown or the metric of equalized assessment, we would have to come up with 1.9 million additional dollars as a down payment on top of what we're already paying or what we've already kind of invested there, you know, like the land and other costs that we've invested.
Mr. Kester, can you come forward and speak to that since you're being quoted?
I've been listening to a lot of suppositions here. When you ask me that question, so everyone knows, we do not need the province's grant to build this new lodge. If you want to borrow the money from CMHC, you have to have 25% down payment. So for whatever you want to build, 25% down, you can borrow from CMHC. It's not a prerequisite to have provincial money. I can't tell you if those numbers are accurate or not accurate. The thing of it is, you need 25% to get CMHC. The reason why we go for CMHC is for the indicative loan rate is quite a bit cheaper. I want to start from the beginning. We're getting off track here and the finances, if I could just give me a little leniency. Our very first performa was performed to try and get the municipalities and the public to inform them. That performa was for 120 beds, and it was taken an average price over the province, 4 or 5 different lodges being built, the average price per square foot, average price per door, and they worked it out, and it come up to $700,000 for the municipalities for 50-year mortgage from CMHC. That was an average build. Since then, the lodge has hired architects, project managers, construction managers, an auditor, construction auditors. And we have worked to price our own lodge. And the best we got now is a Class B budget. It's still in the drawing. We haven't got all the quotes in, but it's a lot more accurate than the Class C. And that's why it took us almost a year to do that work, and we got a new pro forma. The line in the sand was drawn a year ago when the municipalities said we'll support 700,000. It is still 700,000. It is still 120 beds. The price of the building went up $10 million. But the price of our help, the grants from the province, has gone up to offset. That's why it is still 700,000. That's what we pay. We don't pay the 60 million right off the start. We pay the difference. I'm well aware of, and anybody should be aware of, when you build a new lodge, a new hotel, any building that hires or fills with people, the first year is not going to be full. That's a dream. You hope second year to be full. This pro forma here is the third year. There are ways to mitigate what Councillor Montgomery is saying. Oh yeah, the first year, and you pay it all up the first year. Did you pay for this nice building here all up in 1 year as taxpayer to your taxpayers? No, you saved up. You had took out a loan, I'm sure. I'm sure you had reserves. I'm just guessing here, but that's what a prudent business would do. No different with the Lodge Board. We haven't decided yet, but we've talked about if we've got 3 years to fill up, we should maybe start collecting requisitions on the $700,000 3 years in advance. Build up a fund. Maybe we borrow some bridge financing. Calgary Foundation has been in contact with me, and that's what they do. They said that we look like a good candidate to borrow money to bridge finance from the end of construction till full. We could borrow money. We can also ask for special consideration from CMHC and just pay the interest, construction financing. So we could pay just interest for a couple of years. That wouldn't save us as much, but that's, I think, roughly $400,000 a year of our payment is in principal, and $1 million sum is in interest. The lodge itself is, the payment for the loan, I haven't seen it up here, is $1.7 million a year. Not 1.4 that I've seen, 1.7. We have to come up with $1.7 million. If we qualify for the CMHC special grant, after we pay it, they'll give us back $300,000 for 10 years. If we qualify, we could use that to pay off the loan, and it wouldn't be that bad for the ratepayers. There are ways to mitigate it, but if you take and dump it all on one thing, all 1 year for the ratepayer to pay, that's unfair to the ratepayer. It's unfair to the people that are planning it. It's no different than you built this building, and no different than when you buy a new grader or something. Those are huge expenses, and you buy them with careful thought. No different with the lodge. For your information, the requisition, we'll call it that, is a municipal responsibility of the 700,000. That's the municipal portion. The requisition for the old lodge this year is 733,000. It is actually more than what the new one is going to cost you. The reason why it's quite a bit higher is the roof is in bad shape and it costs money to fix a roof. There are other things in a 60-year-old building that aren't brand new, and they don't last forever. We have boiler worries, we have generator worries, we've heard, codes change, safety regulations change. Part of the new roof has to have a patio on top so people can walk up there in safety to service the air conditioning or the cooling fans for the fridges. There's 30,000. It's just change in regulations. So you're getting a building here for a $30 million loan. You're getting a $60 million building. We did a needs assessment. In 20 years, Strathmore, according to Canada Census, needs 400 spaces for seniors living. We couldn't afford $100 million for a new 200-bed lodge. We went to 120, saved the old lodge for 20 years, and give us 20 years to come up with a solution for 20 years from now, and we need 400 beds. 10 years ago, Strathmore did not have a homeless shelter. Having people homeless living, seniors. COVID was a terrible thing for everybody. Seniors are on a fixed income. Rents went up double, triple, I don't know what they are. How do we look after them? We have a needs assessment that says we need 200 plus rooms today. It'll take us 2-3 years to build. We're gonna need more. The only alternative is to ship. People won't come here. They'll have no place for their parents. Their parents will move out of town. I don't know. But I know that's a lot of feelings. It's not a proven fact, but look around. The new lodge is replacing a 60-year-old building that is already costing more to keep than the new building is to buy. How much longer are you going to keep it? And I know the fear is it's not going to fill up. Let's suppose the new lodge does not fill up. We're already getting requests at the lodge to move into the new lodge. We're saying we're not accepting any yet. Say it doesn't fill up. What do? We could close the old lodge and save over half of your requisition and just go to the new one. We could sell the old one as a last resort. We're not committed to the 200 beds. But I'll bet you, whatever you want to bet, we'll need all 200 rooms time we get it built. But there is an out. Not any questions, I'll sit down again. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Kester. Carry on, Councillor Montgomery.
Thank you. Actually, I think that's a great point about the seniors that are on fixed incomes. And to your point, Councillor Peterson, like it's easy to dismiss, these, few dollars a month or, $50
I
bucks
didn't
a
dismiss
year.
it, Councillor Montgomery. I didn't dismiss it at all.
It's for that I'm actually doing this for, so Thank you.
Councillor Montgomery, that's an editorial judgmental comment that she was dismissing that small price, the smaller price monthly. I don't think any of us take it for granted that it would mean an increase in a monthly tax rate. My question as far as average home prices was to try to find out how much it would impact an average homeowner per month to have a new seniors lodge, but we don't take it lightly, and I don't think Councillor Peterson does either. Councillor Wiley?
Just for the people at home, every time sound gets lost to the presenter's mic, it's because it's being muted, just so everybody knows.
Absolutely, and I did say I would mute that. If people are getting to be judgmental and making editorial comments about their motives for saying something, or you're casting judgment on them, then yeah, I might just mute for sure. And people at home, yes, Mayor Fuel has muted Councillor Montgomery a few times.
And when you do that, are you like doing that under some sort of like?
But I've also muted
under the
Councillor
procedure bylaw
Peterson.
or code of conduct, like.
I'm trying to avoid people being treated unprofessionally or having comments made that would be critical of them. And I have muted Councillor Peterson a couple of times too. So people at home, the media, Mayor Fuel has muted a few people today.
So I'll get back to if, let's say they didn't get the grant, which, I didn't mention it in here, but they've been turned down for the grant a couple of times now. So there is, the distinct possibility that, some other idea would have to be come up with.
I think once.
And as, I think it was last year and this year, if I remember correctly.
No.
So, and
Once.
as I mentioned, I'll defer to you as an expert, I guess. So, as I mentioned before, the town would have to contribute an extra 1.9 million in some way, shape, or form as a down payment. And then, and that's for you. There's a citation there for you. Okay. What I did was I went to the Alberta government website, and they have a loan calculator there where you can calculate, mortgages and whatnot. And so when I put in there, what does it cost to borrow $13 million, and I used the interest rate that was used by the consultant, and what it gave me was that the debt servicing of the lodge would increase by $356,000 per year, and Strathmore's share of this increased cost would be 1/3 of that amount, or roughly $118,000. And so this is the lodge numbers. This is the aforementioned 1/3 of the loss, I guess you could call it, or deficit, to be more precise, and added on to with that extra $118,000. And as you'll see through the rest of my slides, actually, I only did that as just kind of a what if based on the response I got from Councillor Kester at that meeting about what would happen if they didn't get the grant, where he said that, municipalities could pony up more. And so this is what that could potentially look like as an implication.
Your worship?
Sorry, do you have a question?
So Councillor Kester just explained how that wasn't the scenario that he presented. It was a statement, and then he clarified it right now. So I think, it's important
so he made a comment, he said something about getting a $60 million building for $30 million. That's only, I believe, if the grant goes through. Otherwise, you would have to borrow, as he mentioned, the 75% and put down 25%. So,
Councillor Kester, did you want to address this once more?
if I could just finish this, honestly,
No.
you guys,
No, I'd like to get this cleared up.
clarify, please, yeah.
I don't like my name being used to promote a lodge for an extra $13 million. That was taken completely out of context. If we don't get the provincial grant and you want to build a lodge, where do you get the money from? I'm not advocating that we build a lodge without provincial help. It was taken out of context. I want everyone to know I do not support that at all. And to use it like this, when I'm sitting here listening, I don't like it.
Sorry.
It was taken out of context.
No, I'm sorry. If anyone wants to watch.
Sorry. No, you can't. Who are you to say it's going to cost an extra $2 million a year? We haven't done a performer on it. It's completely out of context. The $13 million is not supported by me at all. So if you want to continue down this line, say $13 million is supported by Councillor Montgomery.
Councillor,
not me.
Councillor Kester, was there ever a scenario where the lodge was going to go ahead with the project without provincial funding and come up with that extra 13 million?
Never was.
Okay, so we don't need to look at a what if it's never going to be considered by the lodge board?
Yeah, that's fine. But just to be clear, so everybody who's listening to this can go to the March 27th, 2024 special council meeting where I ask what's going to happen if you don't get the grant. And the exact quote from the chairperson of the Wheatland Housing Management body was, if the provincial grant don't come through, we can pony up more as municipalities. I'm thinking it's around $13 million. We can still go to CMHC and borrow that money, but we would have to come up with that in turn to gain what CMHC requires for equity. Anybody can go and look at that meeting and see that what I'm saying is not out of context. I'm giving full context.
It is out of context.
Excuse me.
Because as Councillor Kester just said, he answered a what-if question with a what-if scenario. At no time did he ever say this was what he advocated. So when you play in the what-if arena and you create context and then you add your own narrative and you ask questions about scenarios, sometimes you get answers. But it doesn't reflect Wheatland Housing Management Body's position nor Councillor Kester's, as he just explained.
Yeah, I mean, like, I guess the people at home will have to go and decide for themselves.
But he's just stated that it's not an official opinion. It's not an official scenario for the housing board.
Okay, that's fine. It was only made by somebody named Councillor Kester, who is the board chairperson. So he was speaking, like, not on behalf of the board. I can get that. Yeah. But those are his direct words in answer to my question about what if they don't get the grant. So,
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm sorry, I'm going back to a question I had previously.
Yep.
And that was that what council has currently approved has off-ramps. We have not approved $13 million. Uh-huh. That has not come before council. Mm-hmm. And I'm assuming here, but I'm not hearing a lot of support for that number around this table. Yep. So I'm wondering what the validity of this what-if scenario is when what we've approved currently doesn't even involve that anymore, at all, ever. It never involved that.
Yeah, this is a what-if that was based on a question that I asked to the WHMB board chairperson at a public special council meeting. That is the answer I got. That's the only reason why I added this in here, so I could determine what are the implications if we have to take on that extra, or they have to take on that extra obligation. That's the only reason. I'm not trying to scare anybody here. That's why I only added it for this one section here. I didn't even add it to the rest as a worst case scenario. I just added it.
But hasn't it been stated that it's not going to happen? Like this would never happen. So why discuss it as a?
I mean, as I said, somebody said that at the March 27th meeting.
Okay.
It was
carry on with your presentation.
It was generated, Your Worship, from Councillor Montgomery's what if. It was someone's best intention to answer one of Councillor Montgomery's narratives that he likes to create. And it was a best effort to answer.
Okay, let's carry on.
Why are you muting me? I didn't even say anything.
I muted her.
You muted me too, but anyways.
It mutes everyone at the same time. It's an entire room mute.
Carry on.
All right, yeah. I think anybody can understand why it's reasonable that I would try to determine, based on comments from a chairperson of the lodge board, that saying that the municipalities can pony up the money. I'm sure that's, I think most people understand that one. Anyways, as I mentioned, it's going to cost the town potentially an extra $118,000 a year. Could be more, could be less, who knows.
Councillor Mintzner?
I have a concern because when we have people come from the public or any delegations, we give them 10 minutes. And we're just going round and round and round. So I'd like to know how much longer, how many more slides you have.
Please just let me get this through this as quickly as possible. That's all I want to do. I just want to get through this.
How many more slides do you have, please?
I don't even know what slide I'm on. Maybe 5 or 6 slides more.
I'm not prepared to sit here for another hour and listen to this.
Well, I mean, like,
circus.
I would have loved to have kept it to 10 minutes, to be honest. So the hospice. Wheatland Housing Management Body has partnered with the Wheatland and Area Hospice Society to co-locate the new lodge and hospice together in Kinsman Park. The Hospice Society has worked hard, very hard. Kudos to them. Kudos to all the people that donated, all the farmers, all the businesses. It was a huge effort. They have been working for years very hard. Honestly, it's no small thing. We need a hospice in this community. You know, they were responding to a very, you know, a need and something that people in this town want. And they've done a fantastic job trying to bring that to bear. I have all the respect in the world for the effort they've put forward. And that's why I put in this slide. This is a huge accomplishment and should be recognized as such. So what are the plans for paying for the operating costs of the hospice? So in order to kind of figure this out, I went and I attended a meeting on April 12th, 2024 at the Strathmore Civic Center. And at that meeting, they were answering questions, and they handed out an information package. And so this information on this slide is from that package. So according to WAHS, they expect their annual operating costs to be in the area of $800,000 per year, and they're requesting that the Alberta government pay 100% of that amount. And also, this is a direct quote, any deficit will be covered by municipal requisitions on a per capita basis. So, and this is just...
Dr. McNeely, is this something that you'd like to respond to?
do you want to respond to my other slide later? Okay, I'm sure you'll want to do that too.
So actually, I do have that document here that Councillor Montgomery is quoting. And the last page, so of our hospice, our cost, and it's what is the estimated hospice operating costs and how will it be paid? Third paragraph is any deficit could be covered by municipal requisitions on a per capita basis.
Oh, my apologies. Sorry. Yeah, it says could and not would.
The other thing I'd like to bring up is that the
Hold on, no, excuse me. You have to remove that woman, please.
I don't have to remove her. I can just ask her to not make comments out loud.
Like this is getting ridiculous.
But I would like to say that a hospice cannot requisition a municipality for its operations. So if you're going to put that out there, I think the public should know that that's not going to happen.
So just that's directed to you.
I mean, they can request funds. We can look into that.
I didn't use the word requisition. That's in their own document. So, what's that?
Okay, carry on.
That's so. I mean, that's from their document. I agree. Only like under the Housing Act, you know, we can be requisitioned, and for things like school, we can.
Carry on.
Thank you. So, and this is from the February 21st, 2024 Strathmore Times article. In October 2020, Shasta Senior Living Society responded to a request for expression of interest and qualifications from Alberta Health Services for the provision of supportive living, long-term care, and hospice spaces in a host of locations across Alberta, one of which being in Strathmore. Shasta received a signed commitment letter for funding 54 long-term care spaces, 18 supportive living level 4 spaces that you referenced earlier, Councillor Wiley, 18 supportive living memory care spaces, and 6 hospice spaces with Alberta Health Services in October 2023. These will be fully funded by Alberta Health Services with accommodation rates set by Alberta Health. So, and this is my own opinion.
Just a question, Councillor Montgomery, about health services. Are those accommodation rates continually set, or can they change if a new owner of the building takes over? Since it's a for-profit facility, could those accommodation rates change?
I don't work for Shasta, I'm sorry. or the Alberta
No, I never
government.
said you worked for him. I just thought you might know about that.
Maybe Councillor Peterson knows. Do you want to tackle that one, please?
We're actually experts in that, and I'll defer to the experts. Thank you. If you just
Dr.
step
McNeely?
aside, she'll.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
So with regards to the 6 hospice spaces at Shasta, currently the spaces are funded by Alberta Health Services for accommodation and care. There's also an additional accommodation rate which is equal to what the residents are paying. So for instance, there's hospices suites north of Calgary. I won't name the towns, but those hospice societies are currently funding those suites, which would have been paid by SL4 residents, to $3,800 per month, in addition to what Alberta Health Services is paying.
Thank you.
So yeah, so I don't know if I should, take the blame for this quote from the paper not being accurate, but anyways, that's what I got from the paper.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So when you referred earlier to the fact you're not against attainable seniors housing, you're just more interested in finding some type of a systematic approach to seniors attainable housing. You're talking about some kind of a combination of private, not-for-profit organizations, in addition, obviously, the Wheatland Housing Management Body and so on. You're talking about as many different groups coming to the table, including private money.
I just want to see seniors housed in a safe and comfortable way where, they can be comfortable. And and at the same time, I want to see that done in an efficient and effective way. I don't want to see, sacrificing of safety or necessary quality to do that. And you know what? As I've investigated seniors housing on my own time, I've learned that there are many different ways to supply seniors housing that are kind of done throughout North America and Canada and even Alberta. I personally think we should be open to looking at all of those things. Obviously the Alberta government feels that there's a role for private providers in the system. Does that mean that should be the only way to do things? No. Anyways, so, sorry, go ahead.
No, but interestingly, it really does confirm the number we've heard tonight, that there's probably going to be a demand for up to 400 beds. And we know that there's a demand like that because now the private enterprises are coming in and they're finding solutions, in addition to a full approach that would include a Wheatland Housing Management Body and maybe some not-for-profit organizations.
Yeah, and I'll just, I'll share my own personal view. I actually believe that there will be a very critical need for supportive living in the future. That's where the crunch will be, I believe, because you'll have people that are now functionally independent living in their own homes. And, once all those people can no longer function in their own homes, we'll need supportive living. And so we actually, not to take away from this at all, but I personally think that the focus, we need a lot more focus on all levels of government of supportive living, because, that's where, people can literally not provide for themselves and function on their own without kind of a great amount of care. And so that's, it's certainly important to see that being brought on board. Yeah. And thank you. And so this is, this is something I say, and I'm as I mentioned, I have all the respect in the world for the Hospice Society and the work that they've done. But unfortunately, in light of the fact that the Alberta government has agreed to fund 6 hospice beds through Shasta, it's unfortunately very unlikely that they will fund any portion of the Wheatland Area Hospice Society proposed projects, operational costs, at least any time in the foreseeable future. The Canadian Cancer Society, for instance, they recommend 7.7 hospice beds per 100,000 as kind of a rate, and I think AHS's target is something like 7 beds per 100,000. And so for our region, we would need somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 to 3 beds. So we'll be oversubscribed,
Councillor
not
Montgomery, have you
subscribe,
had
but-
meetings with ministers of seniors housing in regards to hospice? Have you had meetings to know this information? Councillor McNeely, or Councillor, Dr. McNeely, were you in a meeting recently? Do you know any information as far as Councillor Montgomery's statements?
So I would just like to refer back to the previous slide, and Jason and Councillor Montgomery, you can look at this because this is actually from Derek Wise's presentation. He's got the population set at 80 and 85, and he's estimated based on Census Canada the numbers across the next 20, 30 years, even up to 35 years. The percentage of population of seniors 80 and 85 that is served by Wheatland Housing Management, specifically a lodge, is 10%. So, Councillor Montgomery, if you look here, in the next 20 years, how many seniors will there be in our area? Total.
Like it's that number right there, you're
Here's the
saying?
top number. Please read it.
So 2,900 seniors?
2,900 seniors over the age of 80. And I'll read it for you because you're having difficulty. Over the age of 85 is 1,600, give or take, seniors. So I'm...
Dr.
Yes,
McNeely,
yes.
make sure you
So
don't make
I
any
was just trying to
editorial
help you
comments.
because you must not have your glasses. And so 10% of seniors is actually where we get those numbers of 250, 300, 300, up to 400 beds. So that means, in regards to other facilities in our area, if 10% of the population is being served by seniors housing, the lodge, approximately, and I'm just approximating, 20 to 30, maybe even up to 40% of the population are served by SL4, SL4D, and long-term care. The remaining 50% of this population of 3,000 or 2,000 people is actually managing in their own homes. So we have a need here of just 10%. The province is dealing with the remaining 90% of the seniors in terms of SL4, SL4D, long-term care, and providing home care in people's homes. The second thing I wanted to say is, in regard to the current slide, is that if we make an assumption of 7.7 beds per 100,000, which is the hospice ratio that Alberta Health Services is looking at, they've actually provided 6 beds in our area. And if we look at our population, give or take, and I know you've had some problem with this number, our population in our area is about 23,000. So that means in total, if we go up to 7.7 beds per 100,000, we actually need 24 beds.
Sorry, with 23,000 people, we need how many beds you said? 24. And that's based on 7.7 per 100,000? So wouldn't we need to have, in order to get this, wait, but...
Based on what Alberta Health Services has given us now, which
Yeah.
is 6 beds for 23,000.
Okay, so at seven beds per 100,000, if we have 23,000 people, that's about 3.5 times that 7. So that means that it wouldn't be anywhere near that amount. Like, because I mean, like 100,000 is obviously, like 23,000 is only 1/4 roughly of that. So we would need 1/4 of 7.7, which that's where I got the around like 2.
So currently, the ratio is 7.7 beds per 100,000, which is the goal. We are served now at 6 beds for 23,000.
I'm not arguing with what shop.
Exactly. So if we go up to that ratio, then that means that we're actually at 24 beds. That will be the target. So that 7.7 beds was from the late 2015s. It's going to be more.
So I think what you're saying is that because AHS has approved 6 beds for our region. Therefore, we could expect that we will see that ratio in the future. Is that what you're saying? Yes. So that assumption is correct. Even though that's like but you said you agree AHS's target is 7.7 per 100,000? Okay, and so you think that because they're giving us more than that for this region, that they're changing the ratio? Well, I would guess that they probably just don't see the point in building, part of a bed. They have to, round up, and I'm not sure what the deal is they made with Shasta, but I don't know that you made the point that you think you did, but thank you. Anyways, this has been quite an evening and quite an experience anyways, but yeah, this actually, ladies and gentlemen, and people who are watching this debacle at home or in the future, this is actually quintessential for how, trying to get information about the Lodge and Hospice project has been. It's been just completely, you ask a question, you basically get pilloried, attacked, you get, kind of your, reputation smeared, you get, people, you get these, emotional appeals, and you get these, people yelling angrily at you and interrupting you. And, I've just been trying to get some information.
Councilor Montgomery, having been on council with you for 7 years now, I've seen you do more than your share of interrupting people in various times and in various situations. I really wish you would stop the editorializing. I've muted her. She won't even talk to me now. Just make your presentation and stop bringing up things that you've been attacked by people for asking questions.
You keep interrupting me and inviting people up here to interrupt me.
If they have an answer to your question, why wouldn't I invite them? Why wouldn't you want an expert who's been working in the Lodge and the Hospice project? Why wouldn't you want them to address some of the concerns or confusions that maybe your PowerPoint is presenting? So why wouldn't I go to an expert, someone who has a lot of experience and knowledge? She's a retired teacher. She's worked in the hospice situation for many years.
Yeah, I mean, I guess anybody who has a calculator at home can take.
See, you're denigrating.
7 points.
You're denigrating what she's saying by making comments like that. You just belittle things.
If you'll allow me to finish, thank you. So anybody at home can go and see that the ratio that AHS targets, I believe, is 7, but the Canadian Cancer Society apparently targets like 7.7 beds per 100,000. So our region has roughly 23,500 people. So you can figure out for yourself, how many beds roughly our region should get. AHS, or which, Alberta Health or AHS, I'm personally, I'm not an expert. I'm just kind of learning as I go here, but they made a deal with Shasta for 6 beds. So they actually, gave the region more beds than what what their target is. Anyways, yeah. So, excuse me. So at the public information session held by Wheatland Area Hospice Society on April 12th, 2024, it was stated that A, the $800,000 operating cost could be split. So I'm sorry, it didn't say would, it was could, my mistake. Okay, so it could be split on a per capita basis between Wheatland County and the town of Strathmore if no funding from the Alberta government was received. And B, it was stated that the amount that this worked out to was $34 per capita based on the current populations of these municipalities. And C, it was stated that the population of Strathmore was 15,000 people and the current population of Wheatland County was also 15,000 people. Via email, I asked the Wheatland Area Hospice Society for information on how the $800,000 operating cost was arrived at, as this amount was drastically less than what other hospices in Alberta cost to run. I also asked where the figure of 15,000 population for Wheatland County came from, or if this was an error. as 2021 data shows that the population is 8,738 people. I received this response. Hello, Jason. Our spring community presentations are now concluded. We are now in contact with ministry officials and are unable to release further information. We will be presenting our progress in upcoming community presentations. Thank you for your interest. So the reason why I wanted clarification on that was so that when I was giving a presentation on this or talking about it, I could I could speak in some informed way, and I wanted to give, them the opportunity to clear up this, what I thought was probably just, some sort of an error, a mistake, like saying that Wheatland County had 15,000 people. I wanted to give them the chance, and obviously, that didn't happen. So I was unfortunately left to speculate on my own, which I know everybody loves here, but this is using the numbers that were provided to me. So using the supplied figure of $34 per capita multiplied by the supplied Strathmore population figure of 15,000, we get $510,000. And so when you use that supplied figure of $34 and you multiply it by the supplied Strathmore and Wheatland County populations, which total 30,000, we get $1,020,000. So this is obviously not aligning with the estimate of $800,000 per year that is being presented as the cost of running the hospice on an annual basis. That's why I asked for clarification on...
I have a question, Councillor Montgomery, about your
ahead.
numbers there.
Yep.
If our population is 15,000 and the Wheatland counties is 8,500?
87, yeah.
8,700, how are we getting to 30,000?
That's what I asked. I asked how...
Oh, you're saying you got the wrong population numbers given to you? Is that what you're saying?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. And so anyway, so yeah, so using those numbers that they kind of supplied, I did calculate the total amount. I just took 30,000 times $34, and that gave me the $1,020,000. And obviously that didn't align, so I asked for clarification on why that didn't line up. And so what I did though was I took that $1,020,000. I said, okay, what if this is the actual number that they used? And I divided it by the actual population of Strathmore and Wheatland County, which was 23,738, and that gave me an estimate of $42.97 per person. So, and then I looked at what other hospices in the province, what they pay, or what they cost to run other hospices, and it seems that they average roughly $1,000 a day per bed. And so when you take, if Wheatland Area Hospice Society was to get up to the 6 beds that they are talking about, and that did cost $1,000 a day, and they ran all year long, you'd be looking at a total of $2.19 million. I didn't, want to build an estimate based on, again, worst case speculation. So I said, well, let's suppose that the previous slide's figures are closer to correct, given the benefit of the doubt. I didn't go to the $800,000 because I didn't get an answer on where that came from, but I did use the $1,020,000 to kind of figure this out. And I took, and that's where I got the $42.97 per capita. I multiplied that by Strathmore's population of 15,000, and that's how I got the cost of $644,000 is what our per capita cost would be based on that, and that's exactly how I arrived at that number.
Dr. McNeely, do you have any, I want to make sure that the public gets the most accurate information as possible.
So, 2 things. When I was working with our group on the current population of the area, there is some discussion about what the actual population of Wheatland County is, and then what is the actual catchment area that would use the hospice. So, for instance, we've got town of Strathmore at, say, approximately 15,000, Wheatland County 7,000, and the villages 1,000 in total. That works out to the 23,000, which we're agreeing upon. When we look at additional occupants in the area that would use the hospice, it involves additional 7,000 people, which is Ingdes, Langdon, and the Rocky View area. In Langdon itself, at this point in time, is about 5,000 people. So at that point, 30,000 was the amount of trying to estimate how many beds were required, in other words, establishing the need. If you took out your phone and took 800,000 and divided it by 23,000, the actual number is $34 per capita when we were trying to estimate our per capita cost, which is actually different than trying to figure out our need beds for beds. And in actual fact, if we look at the 23,000, the numbers are the same, because if you add a 4% increase year over year for just taking as a sample of Alberta, 4% year over year actually adds up to 30,000 in our area in the next 10 years. And at that point in time, our per capita costs will actually go down to $26 per person.
Yeah, and again, I'll go back to, I guess, the slide where other hospices in the province are operating for substantially more money than $800,000, and there's no information provided about where the $800,000 came from. And I did consider the idea of perhaps like they were catching other populations. I didn't think that that was, you know, I mean, I guess I didn't really kind of.
Well, Councillor Montgomery's gathering his
Calculate
thoughts.
that, I
One thing
guess.
that Dr. McNeely didn't mention in that catchment area was the 8,000 members of Siksika.
Yeah, and so the reason why I disregarded the idea of catching extra people is because those people obviously aren't going to be paying. It's just Wheatland County and Strathmore. So I mean, like, we could include the entire province of Alberta and the population that's catched by this, you know, this area. But if we're the only ones bearing the bill, then that's what matters to us is the total. It matters the total cost divided by the actual population of Wheatland County and Strathmore, not the catchment area and however many people would be served by it.
I have a question, Councillor Montgomery.
Yep.
So do you support Wheatland and Area Hospice Society? Because you said you did, but you know what I'm hearing, not so much.
I mean, like, I did donate my own personal money to them. So, I mean, like, I guess you could say I support them financially. I support them morally, you know, and...
But you're saying here that what they've said is not true?
I said that I've reached out for information on how they arrived at their numbers because they don't line up with what other hospices in the province cost to run. I didn't get information on that, so I unfortunately can't answer your question about how that was arrived at. As I mentioned at the start of this, I support the idea of the community having hospice. Absolutely, if people, want that for an option.
That's all I needed. If it quacks like a duck, thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. And so this slide here is finally, I mean, like, well, almost finally, but so that's, you know, you can see year 1, 2, and 3. There's the amounts that, you know, there's on the left side, you see the lodge portion. And as you see at the top, this is if the grant is awarded. So again, I wasn't seeking to make this as scary as possible. I wasn't making this like a worst case scenario. This is, you know, just based on scenarios provided by consultants. So you can see in the first year where the lodge potentially could lose $743,000. No, sorry, the town's share of the losses would be $743,000. The hospice could potentially cost the town $644,000, and that gives us a total of $1.388 million of increased spending in the first year when the lodge and hospice became operational. This to me is kind of the whole point of this presentation and the information I've been seeking is what are the implications? You know, what are we looking at as a bill? You know, I think, you know, and there's a lot of reasonable questions to ask that do not necessarily mean that you are against lodges, that you're against hospice, that you're against seniors. It just means that you want to know what you're getting. You know, honestly, one of the main responsibilities of people in governance, okay, the politicians, is to be informed and to know, you know, what kind of decisions they're making and what the implications of those decisions are to the best of our abilities. And, you know, we're not going to always make perfect decisions. We're not going to always have perfect information. But at the very least, we need to strive to seek out this information so that we can be informed. Councillor Wiley, go ahead.
Sure, I was just going to wait till you were finished, but
Sorry, I have another couple if you want to wait, but if you want to go ahead.
Then just generally, I just want to thank you tonight. Like clearly, I think the data that you've presented aligns with what everyone who's been coming up to the mic is essentially saying. It does look scary when you see it in the millions, but as everyone's been reminding us, but what I'm hearing from everyone tonight is that this is just information that we need to have. And so all these numbers I've been receiving over many different presentations, it's nice to have them all in one place and to see this slide all together. I just want to thank you for your work tonight.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, you know, like Councillor Peterson is not wrong when she says that a lot of this information has been presented over the years and in like kind of different meetings, but it's never really been consolidated, and we've never actually consolidated it and discussed it as a council in, you know, either an open forum or even in private. And that's what I've been interested in doing, is just
I have a question, Councillor Montgomery.
Yep.
So have you not had access to look at the where all the information was put into one place, like, you know, where it was broken out, the cost, the lodge, the prospects, where there was a consultation, community consultation 3 years ago, where all the slides were put into one spot. It's still on the websites and the various websites, and then those communications were done, consultations were done during COVID. I'm just wondering if you've seen them, because it doesn't speak to what you and Councillor Wiley are saying.
Well,
so let me finish.
I can address your, I can answer
my
your
next question is,
Yep.
then there were 8 community-based consultations
Yep.
throughout the county, throughout the diaspora, and each one of those had all of the information in one spot. To Councillor Wiley's point, all of them. I think you attended one, and then there was another 7 presentations just recently relevant to the Hospice Society, where all of the hospice numbers were put together in one spot. And then, you know, these presentations and the performas, which are all the numbers in one spot, have been put on all the websites for everyone to access all the time.
Yep.
So,
your question.
you know, it's not to take away from you. What my question was at the beginning was, had you not seen those?
Okay, I can answer your question. And I did actually bring this up near the start of this presentation. So this project has changed many times over the years. So to talk about something that was 3 years ago, you might as well be talking about you know, ancient history.
So that's what I just said.
And just to be, you know, I have, obviously, you know, it's you know, as a councillor, and I'm not on the Wheatland Housing Board. I was for a bit, you know, and I did travel to Edmonton. I did meet with the seniors housing minister, as you remember. I was, you know, I was working on the file, and it was a totally different project at the time, and that was only a couple of years ago. It was a completely different project.
5 years ago.
Yeah. Well, yeah, okay, yeah. It was a totally different project, and you know what? And I've asked you questions, for instance, and the answers I received were, rather than, you know, and it's not a criticism necessarily, but, you know, just to give people an idea. The answers I received were, go and check, you know, just go look at this meeting, you know, and so I would.
No, what it was would go look at the experts, at what the experts have said.
Yes, and I would go and I would try to look at the meeting that you referred to, and the link would be broken. Okay, so the information is not actually there for the public. And not only that, but what I mentioned to you in email as well was that when I ask you a question, I need you to give me the number. So first of all, I'm not, you know, chasing down, you know, like if you want to, I can come up with all the slideshows I want and then have you just say, oh, that's all wrong. But you could just answer my questions up front and give me the correct information, which I've been seeking, and just, sorry, let me
I
finish.
did answer.
Let me finish, please, thank you. And also, I did mention as well to you over email that I can't, when I get a question from a constituent, I can't just say, hey, you know what, go look at that video on this website, okay? I would like to be able to say, yes, here's the information I got from our council representative, and, you can take that to the bank, essentially. And so, I believe I'm better informed than a lot of people about all this stuff. I still, as I mentioned at the start, I'm still learning. But that's why I wanted to have this discussion.
So good, Councillor Montgomery, and good for you for putting the work in. But I also want to say that when I say to you, here's where you can find the answer, and you tell me the link is broken, you never came back and said the link was broken. I've sent you lots of information. I've always made sure that everybody on this council has that access to the information. Councillor Wagner is absolutely precise in making sure that you have all the information from the minutes of the Wheatland Housing meetings and anything that we have access to that you do. And so to say that this is the only place is a misrepresentation of the process.
I would just say that I have not been, when I ask a specific question, I should be getting a specific answer, not.
But you could, Councillor Montgomery, it was specific.
Could we both just stop the back and forth, and let's just carry on with the presentation and move on?
Yeah, well, and I guess, to refer to earlier slides that I obviously put in there a few times, I would ask questions, specific questions, and I would get wrong answers. Like, there will be a surplus, which is not actually accurate. I don't blame people for not having, for being misinformed or uninformed.
That is not true, Your Worship.
That's fine, but the quotes are there. People can look at the meetings. But anyways. So, as I could mention here, this is the lodge numbers, not worst case scenario. This is the hospice numbers added together. And as I mentioned at the bottom, this isn't even factoring in inflation for the hospice costs. Another thing I asked administration for information on the last 3 years of requisitions to Wheatland Housing Management Body for the existing lodge. Administration was kind enough to provide that information. As you can see there, the numbers are, and in the past year, or the requisition for 2024, so of the current $244,000 requisitioned for the current lodge, $145,154 is for their 2023 operating deficit, and $99,298 has been requested to increase their capital reserves. As Councillor Kester mentioned, they do have upcoming costs, such as the roof. But for the purpose of this slideshow, I again didn't try to go with a worst case scenario. I just went and I said, presuming that this operating deficit remains about the same, what does our total possible new requisition amount to if the new lodge's hospice is built? And that's where I came up with these numbers. So the number on the left is the lodge and hospice put together, the new lodge, sorry, and hospice. And then the number in the middle is the current lodge. And then the number on the right is the total amount that we could be looking at spending. Okay, so when the first year that the lodge is operational, the town potentially could see a request for the neighborhood of $1.5 million of increased spending. And then, going forward after that, it would be in the neighborhood of $1 million a year. Yep, go ahead.
Could you go back to that other slide? Yep. Thanks. So this, once again, is a worst-case scenario, what if? Because currently, we have not asked the municipalities for any sort of funding for the operations of the hospice, so those second columns there should be zero, because at this moment, we are in negotiations with Alberta Health regarding 100% of our operating funds. So those numbers are inaccurate.
Thank you. Just while I have you here, Dr. McNeely, is the $800,000, is that for 6 beds?
The $800,000 was prepared in 2019, and it is for 6 beds.
Okay, thank you. So what this slide here, this is an extra slide that wasn't in the package, but I just wanted to, I guess, break the numbers out, these numbers here, just break them out so that it's more clear. So this is year 1, how we get the total of $1.5 million. So you can see the new base contribution, 230, the year 1 deficit, which is our responsibility, would be 1/3, which is 500,000. The hospice, which, you know, I'm wrong, but it's 644,000 according to the calculations I used and demonstrated. And then the current requisition for the existing lodge, 145,000, and that's where I get the 1.5 million. So at a recent meeting, you know, I was questioned, or, well, I wasn't here, but there was some comments made about an email I sent where I expressed to a resident who was supportive of the project that we could see what we spend on seniors housing and hospice, I mentioned both, increase 8 to 10 times, okay? And so what I did was I put together this slide to show that what the actual factors by which we will see increases. So year 1, it would be a 10.6 times increase. Year 2,
Councillor Montgomery,
8.5 times increase.
Didn't Dr. McNeely just correct that number and say that it wouldn't be 145, 154, it'd be 0? So,
yeah,
why are we using that if the numbers are incorrect?
Yeah, people can say, you know,
People can say what they want?
Yeah, it's
Oh,
one of
I
those
see.
things, right? This is one of these, like, as Councillor Peterson
So
mentioned,
people
this
at
is just kind of a
home,
big informal,
people at
like,
home who are
cares kind of
watching the
thing.
presentation by Councillor Peterson should also, Councillor Montgomery should also read into it that he can present anything he wants to.
Yeah, I mean, like, I guess, like, as
It's fairly insulting to Dr.
I'll just go back to this,
McNeely.
where I did ask for this information ahead of time, and I was told, you know, no thanks, but, you know, like, I did try to, you know, do some due diligence, you know, before I kind of put this together.
But right now, if she said that those numbers should be 0, why highlight them now at the end of your presentation? Why not just walk away from those?
Oh, well, I mean, like, yeah, like.
Why not, I mean, why use them right now?
Why even try to guess what it's going to cost at all? Right now it costs 0, so I mean, like, why even try to figure it out, I guess? Anyways,
Well, she's saying there wouldn't be any kind of an ask. There hasn't been an ask. There won't be an ask yet.
Yeah, well, and
Okay.
you know what? I've also heard that, you know, if they don't get the grant, the lodge won't be coming to the municipalities to borrow, but then I also heard that they will be coming, so I'm trying to make the best, you know, I'm trying to, with the information I'm given, okay, I try to, you know, figure out, I'm just trying to muddle my way through here, okay? Anyways, so this is what we could be seeing for costs anyways going forward, potentially. Not worst case scenario, but just potentially.
Deputy Mayor Langmaid.
Thank you. Questions?
Thank you, Your Worship. My main question for you is, I've heard you speak this evening about your support for the lodge.
Yep.
And your support for hospice.
Yep.
And recognizing that this is a need in our community. Is that a true statement? Just in general,
I
it's a yes or no.
recognize that there's a demand for hospice, and I recognize that there is a demand for seniors housing.
And you have shown support for both of those projects?
Yep.
Correct, okay.
Yep.
So my question for you overall is, given the presentation you've given tonight, what exactly are you asking council to do? Now, I've heard you say that the purpose of your presentation is to inform us, which again, I take a bit of a concern
Well,
about.
except for you.
I take a bit of a concern too.
Not you.
But what are you asking of us? Are you asking us to better fund our affordable housing, our affordable housing reserve so that we can plan for this increase that might be coming our way? Are you asking us to reevaluate our support of the project? What outcome, besides giving this presentation and causing a bit of a kerfuffle, what outcome are you looking for this evening?
As the very first slide says, information presentation. just wanted to get the numbers out there as I understood them, and I'm like I wasn't I wasn't prepared to ask council for anything actually. I just wanted to be able to have this out there.
And my final question is this: I know you're an intelligent man. So have you considered what impact this presentation will have on the community that we serve? Have you considered what having this presentation in the official public record, where we've identified that there are some inconsistencies and errors in it?
Sorry, go ahead.
We can disagree on that, but
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, okay.
have you considered the impact that this will have on our community and the discussion that these slides is going to drive?
So the way I pictured this going down actually was I would get up here, I would, kind of just ramble through the slides, and we would move on to the next agenda item. I had no idea it would turn into this absolute circus that it has turned into.
So what I'm hearing is an answer of no, you did not consider the impact this presentation might have on this council and this community.
Oh, no, you didn't ask me if I considered it would have an impact.
I believe that was my exact question, was did you consider the impact that giving this presentation is going to have on the community? I'll rewatch the tape when I get home, but I'm pretty sure that was what I asked.
Well, did I consider the impact? I'm not. So I believe, okay, that government, so we talk about accountability, transparency, okay? Those are words that get thrown around a lot with government, and so what are those things? Okay, transparency is not just, seeing the decisions being made. Anybody can, raise their hand, and that doesn't mean anything. Transparency is seeing, like, how the decisions are made, why the decisions are made, okay? And so that, if we just, an agenda item comes up and, we just all raise our hands, we move on to the next thing. There's no transparency there. There's no how did we get to that decision. And then that's the whole point of this, okay? This was to provide transparency to the public, okay, about the decisions that we are making. So with regards to the lodge and hospice, this is how, we will make decisions, and they will, I guess, be either more informed, less informed, depending if somebody wants to provide, refutation, in writing of some of these points. I want to be correct. Whatever I do, I want to be correct. Transparency, that's transparency. Accountability. Accountability is being responsible for the decisions we make, and when we make decisions where we don't know the full implications or the possible implications, and I'm speaking for myself, if we make those decisions, we are not being accountable to the public. It's not enough to just, build a building like the one we're in right now and go, whoa, who could have seen that coming, I want to make sure we see whatever is coming, coming as far down the road as we can. And it's true, as you mentioned, like I've voted in support of the lodge a few times now. I did it last year. I put together a list of 21 questions, and I sent it to the lodge representatives. And what happened was, instead of making the decision a couple weeks down the road as was planned, the decision was sprung on us that night. And I said, well, what about my questions? And I was promised, it was told, you will get the answers to your questions. And you know what? A lot of the questions I didn't actually get answers to, okay? And then again, further down the road this year, okay? Again, we were told there's gonna be a decision made, but you know what? They said, give us some questions. And I gave questions. And instead what happened was the decision came up, and so that's why we had to have the discussion we did at March 27th, actually, was because that was like the last opportunity for me to actually like ask these questions. And I got to question Councillor Kester, and that's how I got the answers that I did. That's how I got the answers I did from our members of the Wheatland Housing Board. But yeah, so transparency and accountability, that's what this is about.
I'm just going to close off with a comment, because this is, believe it or not, councillor questions and comments. Yep. When you say that one of the goals of this presentation was to improve transparency and accountability of this council, you described that this presentation shows the how and the why that decisions are being made.
How, yeah.
You did. You said how and why decisions are made.
Okay.
My main comment is this presentation that you've given does not reflect the how or the why. It reflects the what. It very clearly reflects what you believe the what of the decision is. But you did not address the how and the why. And to finish off, I still remain concerned that the answer to how did you consider the impact that sharing this information might have was basically no, is concerning. That was my comment. I'm done.
Can I address, okay, thank you. I'll address that about the impact. As I said, I believe that not only should council be informed about the decisions we make, but the public should also be informed. They have a right to know these things, and they have, that's part of, that's why I had to do it in public, I guess, because I had asked many times, can we please discuss this? And obviously that didn't happen. And so, based on what happened at a couple meetings ago where there was some question about the numbers I was putting out in public, I had to do a presentation to show where I'm getting my numbers from. Go ahead.
No, I'm listening.
Yeah,
I'll
so
comment after.
I consider the impact as far as, I believe it's proper and right to inform the public.
Councillor Montgomery, I think we need a motion to extend the meeting.
Just a reminder to council, if you're going to continue past 10, you'll need a motion to extend.
Yeah, I think we should just wrap this up, to be honest. But if anyone has any other questions or statements, please.
Councillor Peterson?
Your worship, I would make a motion to extend the meeting to 10:40.
You've all heard the motion.
A comment, please.
Councillor Wiley, on the motion?
Yeah, a comment on the motion. I'm just so against that. We keep doing this in our procedure bylaw. It says 10 o'clock. Some of us work full-time. Tomorrow I have a doctor's appointment at 8 o'clock in the morning in Calgary, so I have to get there. We cannot just keep extending meetings like this. If it's going to be part of our procedure that we are staying till 11, then that needs to be a conversation that we have. It can't just be these ad hoc extensions every meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Wiley. So we have a motion on the floor to extend. And I'd like to turn to legislative services. Do we have any provision in there? It says 10 o'clock, but is there a provision that we can extend?
Yes.
Any other comments about extending the meeting? Obviously, we spent a lot of time on this presentation and the discussion and questions about it.
Well, can I amend the motion that we will extend till 10:40 under the assumption that this portion of the meeting is done so we can get to further business?
Councillor Peterson?
Are you making that a motion?
Yes, I would like to amend that under the assumption that 10.1.1 is concluded.
I would speak against the amendment, Your Worship, because there are people in this room that were promised the opportunity to speak, and I would like to be able to give them opportunity to speak. And, I think that when we want to talk about public being informed, that's really key. And sometimes, I know Councillor Wiley wasn't here in other years. Part of the roles of council is to do the business until the business is done. And sometimes the business is painful. And if I'd have had my choice, Councillor Montgomery would have had 5 minutes, but it wasn't my choice. And so, he's here, and so be it. And so, our job as councillors, or my job as a councillor, is to ride it out. I have to work tomorrow too, really, really early.
So we have a motion on the floor to amend.
There's currently a motion on the floor to amend the meeting is extended until 10:40 with the assumption that with 10.1.1 being concluded.
Okay, so does council all understand the amending motion? I'll call the question. All in favor? And opposed? The motion is defeated. Councillor Peterson, your motion again. Claudette, can you read back Councillor Peterson's motion?
Councillor Peterson moved that this June 5th, 2024 meeting is extended until 10:40 p.m.
Thank you. So that's a motion on the floor. Any further discussion on that? I'll call the question. All in favor? The motion is carried. So is your presentation concluded, other than questions from the audience, if there are any?
So I'm under the impression that the agenda mentions that public speaking is done at the beginning of the meeting. Isn't that correct? And I don't think it's just kind of open mic night.
CAO Scoville?
It's 22.2 of the procedure bylaw. I'm just looking it up here. Members of public shall not address council during a council meeting unless invited to do so by the mayor.
So I will allow questions from the audience, or are there anything that you would like to say? Councillor, would you like to sit so you're not standing all the time?
Oh, yeah, sure. I can answer questions from there, I guess. Thank you.
Come on forward to the microphone.
Excellent. This is a new format for me, and I really appreciate this opportunity as a concerned citizen in Strathmore, having grown up here and understanding the need in our community. I came today to really understand the perspective and the framing around this presentation, and with respect to Councillor Montgomery's informed discussion, I was eager to hear about the numbers, the perspective, the dialogue that was being framed to the community, especially our demographic, because it's one that may not be aware of the need of hospice in this community, one that I know all too well. And from a experiential, emotional space, watching my grandparents all die in this town, knowing my parents will do the same, and that we already are underserved, wanting to make sure throughout this process that I've informed myself. So that's why I came tonight. I'm just asking very quickly, for the sake of time, is there a number of questions that I can ask? I just have a couple. And is there a time limit so I can be respectful of everyone's agenda? I too have to work tomorrow, but I think this is a cause worth diving into. Can I speak to the Deputy Mayor? She seems to be the chair of this meeting.
I was for a short time, but I am no longer the chair. The chair has returned to the mayor.
I am the chair.
Okay. So again, apologies to Mayor Fuel, Councillor Mitzner, Councillor Peterson, my out of respect using Mr., Mrs., and also absolutely, I did not know the format of this meeting, and maybe from where I'm sitting, it might look like I may be aligned with the organizations that are here, and I want to make it really clear, I am not. I'm in admiration, and these opinions are only my own. I am specifically asking tonight, and perhaps my questions about sources might have been preemptive in the eyes of many. However, I do think it's indicative of how the presentation and the information was delivered tonight, and the impact, as Deputy Mayor Langmaid spoke about, will be perceived in the community. So Mayor Fuel, and let me know if you find anything editorial, is it typical practice?
Could you just identify yourself for the people watching at home?
My name is Erin Stockwell. Is it typically best practice for councillors to make persuasive presentations that could shape public opinion in town council meetings, or is that to be left as an informational basis?
That's a good question. We haven't had a presentation done like this by a councillor before. This is a first for us. So I'm not sure if his strategy was to persuade the public of anything. In his view, he was presenting information that he believes is correct, and it paints I think he feels it paints an accurate picture of what could be the financial situation in the future as far as if this lodge project proceeded as it was standing. I mean, we all know that the Wheatland County has voted against a letter of support, and I don't believe that the lodge project is at this time moving forward. It's in a stasis or a limbo at this point. So basically, I think his feeling was to present what he feels or what he thinks is the accurate financial information. My only comment on his financial information is that if the public at home is scared a bit of the large numbers, I would have liked to, and I've said it to Councillor Montgomery already tonight, I would have liked to have seen the different scenarios and how it would have impacted a monthly tax bill, how much it would have added to a monthly tax bill for an average homeowner.
Absolutely. And in asking my next question, Mayor Fuel, do I have the opportunity to make a comment, or should I keep this to questions?
I believe our procedural bylaw states that you can speak to an issue as long as it's on the agenda.
Okay, thank you for your comment there. My follow-up question to that is there some sort of fiduciary responsibility for councillors to use their platform to ensure that citizens receive a balanced and factual presentation of facts when giving presentations like this? I guess this has set a new precedence, but my question, I guess, circles back. Your comments were that there were opportunities to perhaps show a more balanced view.
I'm not sure how your comment about fiduciary fits in.
A responsibility to the constituents or the citizens to ensure that they're not using this as a platform to influence or shape perception around a particular initiative.
I guess it would be up to the public and people watching in the gallery to decide if they felt that Councillor Montgomery was trying to steer them a certain way. It's up to interpretation in a lot of situations. I think the healthy and sometimes spirited debate and discussion had counterpoints to what he was presenting. Like it was a very full debate and discussion and some arguments. So the public at home, I think, would see all sides of the issue, and people here would be deciding as to they'd make individual decisions as to councillors' motivations and what they were trying to accomplish.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, my question, I guess, is as a concerned citizen about this project, knowing the need and knowing that there are subject matter experts who are here. I'm not a subject matter expert in this, but I have tried to educate myself. And what I am well versed in is positioning, presentation, and disclosure. I've done this across various industries where I've been held to an account and a responsibility to the people that I've presented information to. And I guess my concern, in line with the questions I feel like Deputy Mayor Langmaid were asking, is that from the get-go, and perhaps it was preemptive to ask about sources, is the way that the details and the factually correct information with sources there that the presenter felt the need to turn around and comment to attendees during his presentation that were disputed by subject matter experts, even to the point of having to stand up, come to the microphone, and literally interrupt him to have their names cleared. That does not show transparency and accountability. And with respect to this situation, Counselor, I find the smirk on your face, however I should, interpret it, to be completely disrespectful. We've all stayed here and waited this out to say that you have a responsibility with your platform to provide a balanced view. This was not balanced.
Thank you for your comments. I appreciate what you're trying to say, and I intentionally asked people from the Hospice Society and the Wheatland Housing Management Board to come forward to present their take on the information that was being presented, and that's why Councillor Kester was able to refer to the pro forma that the Lodge had received. Councillor Montgomery?
Oh, I could wait until you're finished, actually.
I have really nothing more to say other than it's extremely disappointing as a citizen to see how you've chosen to use your platform in a project where you kind of stuttered around saying, I believe seniors deserve this or this and that and budget, when this is about a real need and cost in the community. So how you conducted yourself and framed this information is not one in which people are going to not pay attention to because of your position. And I would encourage you in the future to be mindful of that, to not cherry pick information, to not misquote, to not reject experts and make flippant remarks when they're correcting you. So I really have nothing more to say other than to make that comment that I hope you'll do better, especially when it comes to a project that's so relevant and needed in our community. Our demographic especially deserves better, deserves the truth, deserves all the facts, and not to have this used as a platform for the type of presentation you delivered tonight. Thank you very much for the opportunity to mention that and to ask the questions.
Thank you. Councillor Montgomery?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for your comments. I'm sorry you feel that way, actually. And obviously, when you got up and you started at the very start of the presentation attacking me about not having sources because the bottom of the slides were cut off and didn't show the sources, it shows that you had an agenda right from the get-go. This presentation was very balanced.
Let's please let's not get into an argument back and forth between the gallery.
The slideshow was intended to be very neutral. It's not my fault. Excuse me.
Okay, let's, Aaron, if you could please stop.
The numbers that I portrayed are all from the subject matter experts that you referred to. They're from the consultants that are hired by Wheatland Housing, by the Hospice Society. As I mentioned, I did go to the length of asking for follow-up information from, I emailed Councillor Kester this past week asking for information about the forgivable loan portion to clear up some misapprehensions about that. I did email the Hospice Society asking for information to clear up, where they got the number of 800,000 from, so I could know that that was actually the correct number and why that was the correct number. Because other hospices in the province are as I mentioned, it costs far more than $800,000 to operate 6 beds, yeah, so this was, I'm sorry that you see it as slanted, but as I mentioned, obviously you had an agenda from the get-go.
Let's not judge on either side. Let's.
Thank you very much for your comments, though, and thanks for attending.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions from the audience? Mr. Kester?
Just a correction. I tabled a motion for a letter of support without conditions for the next council meeting, which I believe is the 18th Tuesday, 2 Tuesdays. So it's for a letter of support for the new lodge without conditions. For Wheatland County.
To go to Wheatland County Council. Thank you.
Yeah, so Wheatland County hasn't officially not withdrawn their support. It was a motion for support without conditions as asked by one of the ADMs. I don't know exactly executive position anyway.
Okay, thank you for that.
Just to make it clear.
Councillor Montgomery?
Thank you. Councillor Kester, if you could just answer one question. So it was raised earlier, and this wasn't my question, obviously, but since the province, didn't approve the last round of grants in your favor, is the lodge project dead in the water right now?
First question first. We asked for over 1/3 of the first allotment of money. So the government chose to give it to a different lodge in need, and they dispersed the remaining money. Our lodge is not dead. I've had a meeting with the minister, and he said our application was very good, and it is still in for the next round. We don't have to resubmit. It's in, we can add to it. We've added a Class B budget to it, and hopefully clean letters of support will be coming up. The minister also indicated that he would make available his staff to debrief our application. I took him up on it, and we met with his staff, and we debriefed our application. There was a couple non-pencil items we had to clarify on. We had to make a statement on why we're, I don't want to get in, it's late night. We had to make a statement on why we're asking for more money than what was in the application. The application is for affordable housing. Our application was for lodges, and a lodge door costs more to build than affordable housing doors because of the conjugate setting that it is and the extra offices, dining rooms, commercial kitchens, all cost money. And they needed that explanation note in there, and we provided that. And I think that was about all that we had to do. No, we're not dead in the water.
Yeah.
We're encouraged to stay in.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I wasn't misportraying, like when I read your comments in the paper about, this is still I just wanted to make sure I wasn't misportraying, as it was kind of possibly,
When the government unveiled and looked at the applications for their $50 million, there was $500 million in asks. The government has since, I think, almost matched that ask in their budget over the next 3 years. There was 70 applications put in by 68 organizations. So it was a huge ask. Lots of people are out there ready.
Yeah, I just want to there should be no mistake about the drive and determination of you and your group. You guys have been pushing hard, and that's why I had no doubt that regardless of what obstacles you guys face, I know you will keep pushing. So, and yeah, that's very respectable.
Sorry, could have whistled. Thanks for allowing public to speak. I think it added a lot to the debate. I shouldn't call it a debate. That was Councillor Montgomery's interpretation of the numbers. He used half a dozen numbers, I'll say, off of a performer sheet that had a couple hundred numbers on it. And that's the way you manipulate numbers. There's a saying about statistics and manipulating them. Same about that too. So thank you for your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Kester. I've had a lot of time. I'm sure everybody's had a lot of time to think about the presentation and all the discussion. And I think I have an idea and a motion that could come forward that would. It may alleviate some of Councillor Montgomery's concerns, and I'd like to turn the chair over to Deputy Mayor Langmaid, and then I'll put a motion on the floor, and then you folks can just discuss it and see what you think. We've always talked about a Maiden Strathmore solution in the past, so Deputy Mayor?
Yes, go right ahead, Mayor Field.
So I would move that council direct administration to complete a feasibility assessment for financing, scale, and siting, and legislative, legal, and regulatory requirements for a seniors lodge to be funded through willing partners, and bring the feasibility assessment to a regular council meeting no later than the first council meeting in October 2024, and that the Chief Administrative Officer be directed to inquire with the villages of Hazard, Standard, and Rockyford, and the Wheatland and Area Hospice Society as to whether they wish to be considered a willing partner for the purpose of completing the feasibility assessment. And if I could speak to my motion.
Yes, go ahead.
Again, with the idea that we've done Made in Strathmore solutions in the past, and that there is a definite need for seniors to find affordable housing through the concept of a seniors lodge. My thought is that maybe we should at least have some sort of report come to us in the fall, just to check on the feasibility of a Strathmore lodge with willing partners of the villages and the Hospice Society. So whether that's a scaled down version, I don't know. Maybe I'm going on the assumption that the county will not approve the lodge support letter with no conditions attached. And then you'll have to talk to her because I'm not the person anymore.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. And Councillor Wiley.
Oh, that is an outstanding motion. That makes me so happy that we extended the meeting. Does your motion preclude that the county, can your motion also include the county if they so desire? Like you said, only seek out information from the villages, but
Yeah, I guess.
like, let's not make the assumption that the county's out.
But wouldn't that be just what we're already been doing with trying to get things
Okay.
done with Wheatland County? I guess I'm just saying, maybe it's a Plan B.
I guess
Councillor.
what I'm envisioning is it comes forward with all the different scenarios. So it includes, like you just said, the data.
Yeah, I worded it as willing partners, so I guess I'm looking, maybe I'm looking at it as a Plan B, that Strathmore looks at maybe a scaled-down version with,
Yeah,
yeah, if they were a willing partner.
but it takes nothing extra for admin to just include what it looks like with the county, without the county, with the villages, without the villages. I am so pleased. Can we just get this emailed to us so I can read it?
Yeah, we need that email, please.
While you're emailing it, Your Worship, can I just speak?
Yes, Councillor Peterson.
Oh, sorry. Sorry,
Still
Chair.
down here.
I just didn't want to get muted. I think that this motion is really, really well reasoned. It's not something that I expected, but it's something that I really appreciate. Because the question we have to ask ourselves is, do we need a lodge? Do we need this lodge? Do we need this hospice? Those are the only two questions we have to ask. Those are the only two questions that the 1,000+ people that we saw in our travels around the county diaspora was the only question they had to answer. And these people knew precisely what the cost was. They were under no illusions. They knew what the cost was, Your Worship. So going forward of something like this, 95% of the people who attended all of those sessions, regardless of what the iteration was going forward, every single session, at the end, we had a 95+ said yes. Yes, we need a lodge. Yes, we need this lodge, and we need this hospice. 95%. So when I hear Mayor Fuel make this motion, I hear a resounding, yes, we need this.
Are there any other comments or questions regarding the motion that's on the table right now? Just so everyone knows in the crowd, Mayor Fuel just emailed us his motion, so if you see us all staring at screens, that's what we're looking at. We're just rereading. And actually, for that matter, I will reread it for the audience and for the people at home while Council considers. The motion on the table right now is that Council direct administration to complete a feasibility assessment for financing, scale and siting, and legislative, legal, and regulatory requirements for a seniors lodge to be funded through willing partners, and bring the feasibility assessment to a regular council meeting no later than the first council meeting in October 2024. And that the Chief Administrative Officer be directed to inquire with the villages of Hussar, Standard, and Rockyford, and the Wheatland and Area Hospice Society as to whether they wish to be considered a willing partner for the purpose of completing the feasibility assessment. Councillor Mitzner.
I would vote in favor of a rescinded motion if you were to add the County of Wheatland. I'd like to keep it going forward. We're all in this together. They're not officially out yet, so I'd like them to be part of the motion also. Amended, yeah, thank you.
So just to make sure I understand correctly, your comment is that we should add in the second part of the motion, and that the Chief Administrative Officer be directed to inquire with the villages of Hussar, Standard, and Rockford in the Wheatland in the Area Hospice Society and Wheatland County to as whether they
but
wish
you
to.
may want Wheatland County above the villages.
I didn't.
Thank you.
I didn't put anyone in order, but okay.
Could I speak to that?
If I may, I think I saw Councillor Wiley's microphone on first. Councillor Wiley.
I would be in favor of that amendment. It's the same thing I really like about the original motion. It's just more information. So this is a $60 million build that's going to include operating both a 120-room lodge and 6 hospice beds. There's just so much information that I would just appreciate out of this. So thank you for the original motion and thank you for the amended motion.
Councillor Montgomery, I don't believe you've spoken on this item yet, so I'll go to you next.
Thank you. Yeah, actually, I think this is great. This is asking for an assessment and information, and yeah, I absolutely love it. So thank you very much for bringing this forward, and I look forward to supporting it.
Mayor Fuel.
Oh, I'm sorry. Am I first?
You're next.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess I was just thinking, maybe it's just me who is cynical and not as optimistic as others. I guess I had initially presented this motion as a what if, like the presentation had many of. What if things don't proceed with Wheatland County? Why not have a feasibility study on the town and other partners? So that's what I was thinking with my initial motion.
Can I ask a question for clarification, Your Worship, on that?
Yes, and then CAO Scoble, I see you.
So it would still be that, we'd still have that, exactly what you said. What would it look like if it was just the small towns and Strathmore? What would it look like with Strathmore, the small towns, and the County Wheatland? That's my understanding. Is that clear?
CAO Scoble, maybe you can...
Well, I won't answer the councillor's question. My question is more clarity for administration. Okay. So when I heard the motion as presented, I look at the resources required to do that. And certainly we've got my background, we've got a really good engineer, we've got really good accountants. And we, as I understood it, with no funding assigned to it, we were going to do the heavy lifting. Any legal we would absorb in the town's budget. Supporting the hospice and the villages if they so choose, just given the resources that they have. So if you're going to include Wheatland, is council's expectation that we're going to do all the heavy lifting for the county on this as we go forward to provide this feasibility as well?
That's a wonderful question.
I guess the scenario as I'm envisioning the amended motion is that we take the data that the hospice and the Wheatland Housing Management Body have already been offering us, and then we just line it up in columns with option A, we're still all in, but then what does it look like if we do, like Mayor Fuel is saying, a Strathmore first approach?
So maybe for clarification, when I hear legal in the motion, we're going to engage external legal counsel at a cost to the town of Strathmore. Is council prepared to absorb that for the villages and the hospice, and is it prepared to absorb that cost for the county?
I think the first question I have is, and understanding that this is the first time that administration is hearing the motion, do you have an estimate on what council may need to approve to be able to approve in addition as funding for this request?
Well, I think the scale and the feasibility we can do with the expertise we have, but we do not have lawyers on council, so we have a legal budget. I guess as we get into the work, we would assess what does the legal requirement look like and talk to our council to see our legal counsel as to what we could expect for costs on that. So I guess we could come back to council that time and ask for money if we need it, if we don't think we can absorb it within our existing legal budget.
Thank you very much, CEO Scoble. I turn back to Council. Councillor Wagner, I haven't heard from you in a while, so I'm going to go to you next.
The court, going by what Councillor Wiley said, does is that not captured in the current pro forma that we have right now if the county was involved?
I think that's a really good point. I also tend to see that if we were to include Wheatland County within this motion, I'm not sure how this would be a different assessment than what we've been looking at. To me, that sounds very much like the same project with some slightly different wording. And if I understand the mayor correctly, this was intended to be a plan B, a second option, a high-level look at what might be available to us as a plan in the future. So I'm not sure where that leaves us with the amendment, but that's my feelings on it.
Maybe I can speak to the financial part of it. So
yes, please.
The pro forma that's been presented on the equalized assessment is, for all intents and purposes, 2/3 county, 1/3 Strathmore, with the balance made up by the villages. So if the county's included, the pro forma is not really going to change. If the county's not included, Strathmore is going to become the heavy lifter. So what I hear feasibility, it sounds to me like, is it even feasible given that Strathmore is going to be the major funder? And I think, I don't want to speak for the mayor, but I think that's the question he wants answered in this assessment. So yeah, if that just helps on the financial side of it, the numbers should not change unless then you pull the lever on the scale and the siting, and it's like we're going to build a smaller lodge for everybody, including the county, right? That's another way to look at it, I guess. But again, I'll let the mayor speak. I don't want to presuppose what he's thinking.
Yeah, your worship, I was thinking, in terms of this not happening the way the initial project was being planned, what could Strathmore do to look after its residents as we look into the future? Because there's a lot of baby boomers. I'm at the tail end of the baby boom. There's a lot of us that will be looking at lodges in the next 20 years. And hopefully we have the health that we don't have to do that to a late time. But I guess I'm looking to see how feasible it would be for Strathmore to do a scaled down version, still using the site that we had in mind, with less partners, if it's even feasible to look at doing something like that.
Thank you. Councillor Montgomery?
Yeah, actually, I think that those are good points, actually, like the current analysis. The current analysis, yeah, it does include Wheatland County and kind of, I guess, the project is envisioned for, the region, including Wheatland County. So as CEO Scoble mentioned, it's like, are we going to be looking at kind of scaling differently? And with Wheatland County involved, I don't think that's really something we need to worry about. Whereas, I do agree that, if we should be looking at these questions, if Wheatland County was not involved, what does that mean for the town? As I mentioned, I just want to walk into whatever we're doing with eyes open and with, all the numbers, however ugly they may be. One question I do have, though, about this motion just has to do with the legal and regulatory requirements. I'm not clear on what that actually refers to. If you could just clarify.
Well, I guess I'm thinking in terms of everything, the environmental assessment, is that going to be good enough? Do we have to have a new one for a scaled down version? Are we going to look at the same site? There's a lot of things that I would want us to consider.
Okay, yeah, sorry.
CEO Scoble?
Sorry, I'm just interpreting what I'm hearing here from the mayor and in the motion, but when I hear legal, like right now, the town of Strathmore is part of the Wheatland Housing Management Body, right? So does that, if under this scenario, if not all the current members of Wheatland Housing were in this new project, does that require the formation of a new society? Like all that sort of stuff needs to be looked into, so.
That definitely sounds legal and regulatory to me. Councillor Peterson, I think you're next.
So you know, in respect of Councillor Mitzer's amendment, I think that I wouldn't support it only because we don't need it, because as the mayor has just pointed out, we already have the pro forma. So we could just include it, it's there, we have it. The robust veracity, you know, isn't questioned by very many, and we have something to go forward on it. But on the original motion, it's very clear that we're creating a Plan B. So I would be very much in favor of the original motion.
All right, and just to remind everyone on council and in the room, we are currently debating the amendment, which is to include Wheatland County in this motion. Councillor Wiley.
But we do need it. Like, look at all the debate over the numbers that were given to us tonight. I want it in nice black ink, all in one place, telling me exactly how these numbers line up. And so, but it's all together. That's how I want to see it. Nice line.
Okay, so is there any further discussion on the amendment proposed by Councillor Mitzner to include Wheatland County within the motion? Your Worship.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank
That's
you, Your
weird.
Worship. I guess with my original motion, it would be our council could request something from Wheatland Housing Management Body right now as far as a simplified black and white thing for you to look at. My motion is strictly dealing with the what if County of Wheatland doesn't come aboard. What can we do as a town to look after our seniors by partnering with whoever is willing to partner, like the villages? I know they would be willing to partner. I'm pretty sure if Wheatland County does not want to be a part of this. So I'm looking at an alternative feasibility report to us, and that we could get information like you're wanting from Wheatland Housing Management Body and our representatives in a simplified form if we specify exactly what we want.
Thank you, Mayor Fuel. Are there any further comments on the amendment that we'll be voting on? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? And opposed? And the motion has been defeated, which means that we're back to our original motion, which I'll just read the second portion of it, and that the Chief Administrative Officer be directed to inquire with the villages of Hussar, Standard, and Rockyford and the Wheatland and Area Hospice Society as to whether they wish to be considered a willing partner for the purpose of completing the feasibility assessment. Are there any further comments or discussion on the original motion as proposed? Seeing and hearing none, I'm going to, Councillor Montgomery.
So, and I can bring this up separately, I guess, but as some of you know, like last year, I kind of did a bit of a tour, and I learned about an alternative form of seniors housing that is nonprofit, and it's kind of a smaller scale. I'm wondering if there's any appetite to include having administration at least review and present what those look like, or like I mean, like, not that you guys want to see another presentation, but I mean, like, I don't mind like kind of doing a presentation about what I learned at that thing, but so yeah, I don't know that it would fit necessarily. It could fit with this, to be honest, but I guess I'll leave it separately. But yeah, I certainly support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. CAO Scoble.
So my comments on that be, what kind of feasibility do you want done? So currently, the current proposed lodge is at a Class B estimate, right? So again, when I hear this motion and I look at the resources I have, we have a really good engineer in Ethan who did a lot of building work with PCL. So he can probably look at this and modify it as necessary in terms of a sizing. If you want to start looking at other opportunities or options for seniors housing, that will not come in at a Class B estimate. You're going to be back at, really, this is a feasibility, right? Like you go feasibility, then you go conceptual design, then you go to detailed design, which is where we are in this project right now at a Class B. Started at a D, but we're headed to a B now in the detailed. So you're back 3, 4 steps in the you're basically starting a new process if you're going to look at other options. So that's just comment for council, is we can take the detailed work that's been done, modify it for a made in Strathmore solution as the mayor wants it, or if council wants, we can start all over again, but you're losing all that time in the process. So when we come forward in October, if it's a feasibility of all options out there, you're basically starting all over in October.
I think that's a very, thank you very much. I think that's a very good point. And what, well, I've heard Councillor Montgomery speak about his interest to look at different models and different options. What I'm hearing the majority of the discussion around is potentially, looking at the project as it exists now. Would that be feasible for the town? Should the county not be a willing partner? And then perhaps I think the other option that people are interested in hearing is, what would a scaled back version look like? So maybe not the full project, but and I don't want to put a number in Mayor Fuel's mind, but what kind of percentage, half the size, like three quarters of the size, I'm not sure.
I'm thinking that would be a part of the feasibility study is what would Strathmore be looking at as far as our own made in Strathmore solution with willing partners. And then if the feasibility report comes back and it looks really like something we couldn't achieve, then we can maybe look at other housing options.
Yeah. So this has actually been a good point raised. There probably needs to be some more specificity in the motion, just so that administration is clear what it's doing. Are we taking the existing lodge and looking at modifying that, whether it's knocking off a floor or whatever, or are we going back to look at other options? Just, I think that should be clear in the motion, so we might need to make an amendment to that.
All right. Councillor Montgomery?
Oh, like if Mayor Fuel wanted to say something, I can wait.
I was just going to ask for help as to how to do an amendment along those lines. Because my concept was to look at the existing lodge project, the building, the site that we have, and what would happen if we scaled it down. What could we afford?
So perhaps Ledge Services, maybe you could, and CEO Scoble, yes, good point. Before we move forward, we are now at 10:37 and we only approved an extension until 10:40. So at this point, our meeting is adjourned in actually now 2 minutes unless someone is willing to make an extension to, a motion to extend. Councillor Peterson.
I move we extend till 11 o'clock.
All right, everyone's heard the motion that we extend the meeting till 11 o'clock p.m. Any comments, questions? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? And opposed? And the motion has been carried, so we will continue on until 11 o'clock, and we're back into the discussion regarding how we might amend this motion to provide more clarity to administration. Councillor Wiley.
I love this motion. I'm looking forward to supporting it, but not tonight. I think I'd prefer if it was passed to administration so they could look at it, ask some questions about it, and bring it back to us. I know next meeting is a committee of the whole, but I would at least like to discuss it at the committee of the whole. Maybe there'll be some other comments on it. I'm not prepared to support it tonight. I love it though.
All right, that actually sounds, honestly, in my own opinion, I think that sounds reasonable. It sounds like there is some discussion for us to really maybe nail down the scope of what we're asking administration to complete. And from my point of view, committee of the whole, it would be a perfect meeting for that to occur. So I think if someone is willing to make a motion, well, I'm not even sure we'd need to withdraw the motion that's currently on the table.
Well, I can move to table it, I think, to a committee of the whole, perhaps.
Yeah, does that, Ledge Services, could I just consult, would tabling the current motion as it's written to a committee of the whole, is that the proper procedure? Is that a proper procedure? Maybe not B? CEO Scoble?
Well, you can. Council can do whatever it likes. I think the fundamental question is, are you modifying the existing proposed lodge design, or are you starting all over? That's the question. If you want to bring it to committee of the whole or table it or whatever, that's certainly your prerogative.
Okay. Yes, I understand. What I'm hearing is that's the question we need to answer, and I'm not Personally, I'm not sure that 10:40 at night is the time for us to answer that question. Councillor Peterson, I don't think
I
I've
think
heard
the
from you
motion
yet.
is really clear. We're looking at a scaled-down version of the original building with willing partners. To me, that's really clear. And we're asking for a report to come back in October. If administration has questions and they want to bring it to a committee of the whole and they want to be discussing it, we can do that. But I'm not in favor of deferment.
All right, thank you. So the motion I have on the table right now is the original motion, as we've discussed. So is anyone
We
looking-
have prepared an amendment if council wishes to consider it. Claudette can email it to you.
If there's an amendment proposed that would work for Ledge Services, I think absolutely we could look at that. Thank you, everyone in the audience, for your patience with me. I'm still learning how to be a chair.
Chair the tables motions. Chair the tables.
Can I ask a question to Kevin?
Yes, go ahead, Councillor Metzner.
Through the chair to administration, could we keep the same model and go after different willing partners?
Yes, I believe that's the motion we're putting before you. The amended version to consider is a.
So Ledge Services, I saw your email come through, but I just see a response to the original motion email. There's no wording in it. Oh, is it there?
If you click more, it'll come up.
Sorry, I apologize. I forwarded it to you with modifications.
Oh, sorry, perhaps I'm...
She just scrolled down.
One moment, please. I see it, okay. So I see that. Someone would need to make a motion to amend what's
I'll
on the
make the
table.
amended motion as well.
Could you please read out the amended motion?
I move that council direct administration to complete a feasibility assessment for financing, scale, and siting, and legislative, legal, and regulatory requirements for a modified seniors lodge based on the current proposed Wheatland Lodge design to be funded through willing partners, and bring the feasibility assessment to a regular council meeting no later than the first council meeting in October 2024, and that the chief administrative officer be directed to inquire with the villages of Hazar, Standard, and Rockyford, and the Wheatland and Area Hospice Society as to whether they wish to be considered a willing partner for the purpose of completing the feasibility assessment. And if I could speak to that really quickly.
Yes, of course.
I think the fact that in the first motion we talk about willing partners, we could talk to other groups like Rocky View County.
Thank you very much, Mayor Fuel. So we've all heard the amended motion. Is there any further comments, questions, or discussion on the amended motion? Seeing and hearing none, I'm going to call the question. All in favor? And that has passed unanimously. And at this point, Mayor, would you like me to turn the chair back over to you? Please?
So we have a motion to extend to 11. That brings to an end this questions between councillors and council statements. 10.3, we have no question and answer period. I don't believe we have any more questions and answers.
Sorry, Mayor, I did actually just have a very brief council statement.
Okay.
It's just regarding I meant to say it during the garden suite and garage suite. I just didn't say it before the first reading, but here nor there, I just want to assure anyone who's concerned that what's going forward is not a blanket zoning and by no means. And if anyone's, this is something that we've been discussing for a full year on now. It might have appeared as though we just put it through a first reading and then moved on. But this has been something that's been looked at in detail. This is, I think Mayor just used the term like a Strathmore approach. This is exactly what we're looking at here. So it's highly regulated, it's limited, and it's in no way blanket zoning. So I just wanted to get that out.
Thank you, Councillor Wiley. I don't believe we have any more. We move now. Claudette, do we have any administrative inquiries tonight?
Not at this time, no.
Thank you. We move now to 10.5, notices of motion, 10.5.1, racial equality review. I'm not sure if we've left ourselves enough time and it's late in the evening. Do we want to go through this, or do we want to have a motion to table this to a meeting? I'll just resubmit it. Okay. All right, so we don't need a motion to table that to a later meeting?
I think we might, Your Worship.
Well, yeah, it's on the agenda. It hasn't been officially removed. I think you should.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Langmaid, did you want to jump in?
Oh, I was just jumping in to say that I think we do need a motion, and if we're looking for one, Jason, I'm looking at you so that you can give me a visual cue on whether I'm off base on this. Motion to defer 10 point, oh goodness, sorry, I'm looking off. 10.5.1 to the June, I'm looking at a calendar now. To the
June 20th?
To the June 19th regular
19th,
council
sorry.
meeting. So I'll just repeat that. So a motion to table item 10.5.1 until to the June 19th regular council meeting.
I will move we defer item 10.5.1 to the June 19, 2024 meeting. Please and thank you.
I think I might have just made that motion myself. Sorry.
Your Worship, I will not, I think I've, oh, I'm the chair. Jeez, this has been a long week today I will not be here on June 19th, and I would love to be a part of the discussion and possible debate. I don't know if it's important to delay it, important enough to delay it till the first weekend, the first council meeting in July, but I would like to be a part of it, but I understand if folks want to get going ahead on it anyway. July 3rd, yeah.
I move to amend my motion so that it says, so that we defer 10.5.1 to the regular council meeting of July 3rd.
Thank you for that motion. Is there further discussion on that new motion, or amended motion, sorry? Then seeing none, hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that motion is opposed? Okay, is there an opposition there? Councillor Montgomery, I couldn't see you. You're opposed to the amendment, okay. So the amendment carried, and now we vote on that motion. So is everybody comfortable with what the motion is for this to be coming to us on July 3rd? Then I'll call the question. All in favor? And the motion is carried. I have lost part of my agenda now. Does that bring us to the end of the public portion?
That does.
Thank you, Claudette. So a motion to go in camera? Deputy Mayor Langmaid?
I move that council move in camera at 10:50 p.m. to discuss Strathmore Stampede advice from officials, FOIP Section 24.1A, and Council CAO dialogue advice from officials, FOIP Section 24.1B, and 12.3 board and committee matter advice from officials, FOIP Section 24.1BI.
Thank you. You've all heard the motion. All in favor? Motion